Chapter 626. Attracted by the speed of Wushang Sparrow's sword, many disciples gathered. Shangguan Zhaorong came over with a cup of spirit tea and said softly, "Please make way." Seeing her, Wushang Sparrow took advantage of the situation and said, "Miss Zhaorong, do you want to learn?" A dignified elder took the initiative to teach a disciple a sword art, but was rejected. It was a bit embarrassing. He wanted to save some face. But who would have thought that Shangguan Zhaorong, who was placed on the table, stood up straight and shook her head in a ladylike manner and said, "No, I will serve young master wholeheartedly." Well, the master and servant were acting like this. Wushang Sparrow was embarrassed. "Miss Zhaorong, are you afraid that it is too difficult to learn?" "No, learning this sword art has nothing to do with cultivation. As long as you have enough comprehension and are willing to spend some time, you will definitely be able to learn it." Jiang Xiu thought that if the person in front of him was Zhaorong, it would be fine. But if it was a goddess, he didn't even dare to imagine how strong she was at her peak. This sword art was no different from a child's play in her eyes. Why would she want to learn it? "I still don't want to, it takes up too much time." Wushang Sparrow's mouth twitched unnaturally. Seeing Jiang Xiu raise his teacup and drink, Wushang Sparrow embarrassedly stopped his sword art and walked over. He sat down opposite of Jiang Xiu. Shangguan Zhaorong had already passed the cup to him. "Are you guys usually so bored?" Jiang Xiu had already taken out the book on Heaven's Inquisition Talisman. He spent almost all of his time on it. Heaven's Inquisition Talisman was an extremely ancient talisman that existed on God Buzhou's body. Its origin was even earlier than God Buzhou. Even Jiang Xiu's memory had a lot of mistakes. Fortunately, Shangguan Zhaorong corrected him. But memorizing was only the first step. Comprehending the mysteries of each talisman was the key. Jiang Xiu's current comprehension was very limited. Talismans were very difficult to explain. They were very similar to laws. Most of them couldn't be explained and could only be comprehended by oneself. "What are you looking at?" Jiang Xiu didn't hide it. Heaven's Inquisition Talisman was circulated in Western Zhou, and there were many similar words circulating in Immortal Martial Continent. There was no need to hide it. "What is this?" Jiang Xiu explained. "This is a type of talisman I discovered in the Western Zhou country. It should be very ancient, and is different from the ones circulating in the Immortal Martial Continent. That's why I'm interested in it." Supreme Sparrow was an immortal doctor. He wasn't interested in talismans and formations. He only took a glance at the dense array of talismans. Anyone who didn't know much about talismans would feel a headache coming on. Seeing the helplessness on his face, Jiang Xiu secretly laughed. It would be best if they didn't get along, and went their separate ways. That way he would be able to smoothly head to Tsang Province. In a flash, half a month had passed. From time to time, Supreme Sparrow would come over to communicate with Jiang Xiu. However, Jiang Xiu was able to deal with it. As for Jiang Xiu and Shangguan Zhaorong, other than the matters at night, they were also very bored during the day. Jiang Xiu would read books and occasionally discuss with Shangguan Zhaorong about talismans. Other than that, there was nothing else to do. It was extremely boring. After another 10 days, Supreme Sparrow couldn't take it anymore. He realized that if he followed Jiang Xiu around, he wouldn't be exposed. Finally, before they reached Tsang Province, he suggested that they part ways. Seeing Jiang Xiu leave, Supreme Sparrow fell into deep thought. A disciple beside him said. The disciplinary elder asked why he didn't directly use his blood to verify it. Supreme Sparrow said, "Jiang Luoxia is arrogant and conceited. This is all on the surface. In reality, he is very meticulous and intelligent. If my judgment is wrong, then Jiang Luoxia's blood in the ancestral hall would have already been swapped by him. I was too careless that day. If I discovered that the enchanted moon white lotus had been stolen, I would have charged straight for him. Who knows, I might have been able to catch him red-handed. Now it's too late to say anything." He indeed had a reason to regret. When Jiang Xiu came to find him that day, he already felt that something was wrong. Jiang Xiu might have had designs on him, but his reaction was too slow. "Teacher, his cultivation isn't there. How could he have stolen the enchanted moon white lotus from the immortal medical peak, including the area where the spiritual herbs were planted?" The main hall was the most important. Everything was strictly guarded. How could someone without cultivation enter, let alone steal such a precious item? Supreme Sparrow said. I was misled by this point. That's why I carelessly underestimated him. That disciple's expression changed greatly. Teacher can't be thinking that Jiang Xiu's natal divine weapon has been repaired, right? That's something that has never happened before. Supreme Sparrow said. Humph, a person who should have been dead is standing in front of you again. He changed his appearance from an immortal to a divine capital. If it happened, what else is impossible? If that's the case, then should we just let him go to Tsang province? Supreme Sparrow said. If we keep following him like this, he won't do anything. If he truly wants to reveal his fox tail, then we must give him space. If he really is sect leader Jiang, then why did he come to Tsang province's heavenly emperor mountain? Supreme Sparrow muttered to himself. Back then, there were all kinds of rumors flying around. From his behavior, it seems that he doesn't even know who harmed him. He might have come to find the culprit. The disciple on the side had a strange expression. Teacher, do you really think he's sect leader Jiang? Why are you so sure? Supreme Sparrow said. Someone told me. Someone? Who? Supreme Sparrow said. Do you remember that time when Jianyi secretly came and asked for a large amount of resources? Of course I remember. It was a few months after sect leader Zhang's corpse was brought back to Tianqing school. Sect leader Ji succeeded the position and sect leader Zhang's disciples lost power in the sect. Many of them were assassinated. Yet he came to ask for such a large amount of resources. I thought he wanted to take the things and run away. I remember that teacher refused. Supreme Sparrow shook his head and said, No, I gave it to him. That disciple was shocked. You gave it to him? Supreme Sparrow said, That's right. After I refused, Jianyi came to visit late at night. He told me that it was his teacher who asked for it. He also said that he wanted to use a flying sword to transport the resources to outer space. From the positioning of the array, it would take more than 300 years to reach that place. He also showed me a funeral text. What? That disciple was shocked and in disbelief. But, sect leader Zhang's corpse and so many witnesses at that time. Could it all be fake? Supreme Sparrow frowned and said, Indeed, this matter is inconceivable. After that night he disappeared. I didn't know if he was alive or dead. I also thought that I was tricked by Jianyi. But 10 years later, when Jiang Xiu appeared in Tianqing school, I knew that Jianyi didn't lie to me. He's back. He really isn't dead. That disciple's expression gradually changed. He finally understood why his teacher was so sure that Jiang Xiu had returned when he first saw Jiang Luoxia. Supreme Sparrow was in the limelight that Jiang Xiu was Jiang Luoxia. But he still refuses to admit it. I'll make him admit it. Supreme Sparrow said. I remember that he has friends in Song State. Of course, it's not that friend who came out to prove that he was dead. Jiang Xiu and Shengguan Zhaorong rode a small flying boat and arrived at Song State. Young master, where are we going? Jiang Xiu had been chased here before. Later on, he even became friends with the one who chased him. However, that friend didn't seem to treat him as a friend. Thus he knew a bit about Song State. However, he didn't know that there was a heavenly emperor mountain here, much less go there. I'm looking for someone. Perhaps I shouldn't look for him. The buildings in Song State were still the same as before. They were scattered like stars in the sky and chess pieces in an orderly manner. The streets were filled with endless streams of horses and carriages. Walking on this road, Jiang Xiu felt a sense of familiarity. He was even more familiar with this place than when he was in the Sky Travel City. Slowly, he had a sense of déjà vu as if he had been here before. In fact, he had been here before. However, the scene was different from what he remembered. He realized that it might be the memory that he had forgotten. This memory finally came back. When he stepped into the place in his memory, the forgotten memory was finally awakened. Along the way, the river bank was filled with silence and was filled with sails. Here, Jiang Xiu had spent a lot of money for the courtesan bell. However, he couldn't remember what had happened. He had a vague impression that it should be a part of his lost memory. Guest, you've come too early. We just closed for a while, The courtesan bell selection will only start at night. Jiang Xiu nodded slightly. Is there a courtesan bell selection tonight? Today is the 7th day of the new year. It's a good day. It will be very lively tonight. Chapter 627. The houses on both sides of the river, the boats on the river, and even the texture of the water gave Jiang Xiu a sense of familiarity. The intersection with this place seemed to be the most important part of his lost memories. He called out softly, "Zhao Rong," but Shangguan Zhao Rong, who was standing beside him, did not respond. When Jiang Xiu turned his head to look, he found that Zhao Rong was staring at the scene in front of her in a daze. "What's wrong? You don't like it here?" Shangguan Zhao Rong came back to her senses and shook her head with a smile. "How could that be? As long as you like it." After all, this was a brothel. Jiang Xiu responded and felt a bit strange. He and Shangguan Zhao Rong were so compatible with this painting of heaven and earth. As if even Zhao Rong belonged here. He asked, "Did you bring money?" A brothel was the most expensive place. Shangguan Zhao Rong shook her head and said, "Not much. If you need a lot, we can sell some resources. When we got off the flying boat, Elder Wushang Ke gave us a lot of pills. Of course, they also had a lot of resources." Jiang Xiu had stopped his cultivation and saved up all his resources. A month's worth of resources as a direct disciple of the Tianqing school was enough to exchange for Heaven's Inquisition money. Money was useless in the eyes of cultivators. It was like gold in the desert. If you didn't have water, gold and silver would be dung. And then let's go exchange for some. Jiang Xiu turned and left, while Shangguan Zhao Rong looked back at the riverbank with a hint of nostalgia. Her eyes flashed with a strange light, and she sighed with emotion. In the immortal martial continent, there were many places where resources could be exchanged for money. At that time, it was the opposite, using money to buy some low-level cultivation resources. Of course, they would also accept resources. "Guests, please come in." The waiter saw Jiang Xiu and Zhao Rong come in and said respectfully, "What do the two guests need?" Shangguan Zhao Rong said, "We want to exchange for some money, using pills." That person heard this and bowed deeply to Jiang Xiu and Shangguan Zhao Rong. "So it's Shangxian. What level of pills do the two Shangxian want to sell?" Shangguan Zhao Rong took out the lowest level pill he had on him. "Level 6 yellow dragon pill?" The man sucked in a breath of cold air. 1. The level 5 yellow dragon pill was meant for sky immortals, and upper sky immortals at that. Jiang Xiu was at this level before he was injured, so the sect naturally distributed the pills according to this standard. No one bottle. It was said that the yellow dragon pill needed the yellow dragon grass as the main medicinal primer, and the yellow dragon grass needed the nourishment of dragon saliva to grow. Dragon saliva was the saliva of the yellow dragon. Therefore, the yellow dragon grass could only be found where the yellow dragon lived, and it was very rare. 1 bottle? The waiter's eyes widened in shock. His mouth was stuttering for a long time. What kind of joke was this? One pill was already so precious, but there was actually an entire bottle. Exchange for money? Shangguan Zhaorong said. The attendant was dumbfounded. Pills of this level were priceless. Many rich officials and nobles couldn't buy one even if they had the money. It was even more precious to cultivators. The customer in front of him was actually selling a bottle of it. It was definitely a big deal. Two upper immortals, please wait a moment. This little one can't make the decision, so I have to ask the boss. This hall was called 8 Immortals Pavilion. It sold high-level pills, talismans, flying swords, and so on. It was the largest hall here, so they believed that the boss had this kind of wealth. Not long after, a middle-aged scholar came in. He was in a hurry. Greetings to the two upper immortals. This little one is the boss of this small store. I heard that the two upper immortals want to sell an entire bottle of yellow dragon pills. Shangguan Zhaorong threw an entire bottle of yellow dragon pills over and said, There are 12 pills in a bottle. Check it. The other party took it to the side of the long table. He placed a clean cloth on top of it and poured out all the pills. After checking them, he confirmed that all 12 pills were yellow dragon pills. Upper immortals, do you want spirit stones, gold pearls, silver pearls, or? These things were not easy to carry. Gold pearls required several large chests to carry. Silver pearls were even more so. Even the most valuable spirit stones required a lot. Jiang Xiu said, "Let's exchange it for banknotes." A small amount of spirit stones. The man was overjoyed. Banknotes were custom-made by the country. If they exchanged it, they would definitely spend it here. He was not only the owner of this store, but also a member of the country's royal family. Night gradually fell. Not only did the number of people on the road not decrease, it actually increased. Especially on both sides of the river, there were red lights and green wine. All kinds of music and the clamor of drinking could be heard. "Young master, you want to promote Courtesan Belle?" Jiang Xiu secretly shook his head. He had promoted Courtesan Belle once before. At that time, he wasn't the sect master of Tianqing school. Jiang Luoxia's fame wasn't that great yet, but he felt that he had done it twice. The other time should be a part of his lost memory. He didn't want to promote Courtesan Belle, but only wanted to recover his lost memory. This was an opening, and he couldn't let it go. Looking at the riverbank, an image surfaced in Jiang Xiu's mind. A woman was standing by the riverbank with an oil paper umbrella in her hand. The rain wasn't heavy and it was very clear, making one feel very comfortable. The woman was tall and dressed in snow-white clothes. In the wind and rain, under the roadside lights, she was filled with a hazy beauty. She was like a beautiful fairy in the world, deeply attracting Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu believed that any man who saw her back would be attracted to her. She was too perfect. Her long hair fluttered slightly in the wind. Her waist was thin, her hips were high, and her legs were straight and slender. Her figure was indescribably elegant. But she didn't turn around. Jiang Xiu couldn't see who she was. "Big brother Jiang, big brother Jiang." Jiang Xiu seemed to hear her calling him. "Young master, young master." Jiang Xiu suddenly woke up from his memories and looked at Zhao Rong in astonishment. His face was still a little shaken and confused. "Zhao Rong, are you calling me?" "Gongzi, what's wrong with you?" Jiang Xiu hurriedly looked back at the riverbank. There was no one there, and it wasn't raining. She must be someone I met. Otherwise, my memory wouldn't be so deep. "Did you just call me big brother Jiang?" Shangguan Zhaorong's clear black and white eyes flashed with a trace of astonishment. She shook her head and said, "No." "Is that so?" Jiang Xiu said, "Can you call me big brother Jiang?" Shangguan Zhaorong's eyelashes fluttered. She looked at him coquettishly and said, "Don't you like Zhaorong to call you Gongzi? It's to satisfy your evil taste of the old society." This was what Jiang Xiu said in certain places. Usually he was still very cold. It was like some girls who usually spoke Mandarin, but on special occasions, they would speak some Japanese. Zhaorong's face flushed. Her cheeks were perfect without a trace of flaw. Her skin was white and flawless. She was very shy, and the shyness of a young girl was even more charming. "Calling you big brother Jiang is also very interesting." Shangguan Zhaorong bit her red lips. She was so shy that she felt like she was being teased. Her delicate body was somewhat hot. Big brother Jiang." Jiang Xiu shook his head and said, "No, you should call me with a bit of sadness, a bit of helplessness, a bit of sadness." Shangguan Zhaorong really wanted to kick her Gongzi, but she couldn't bear it. She could only endure the shame and excitement in her heart and called out, "Big brother Jiang. Call me again. Big brother Jiang." Jiang Xiu listened to Zhaorong's call. The doubt in his eyes gradually became stronger. Similar to similar. Sometimes, Jiang Xiu really couldn't distinguish a girl's voice. It seemed to be very pleasant to the ears, as clear and sweet as jade beads falling to the side. When Xie Ting came out of the water and turned into a goddess, she called him Big Brother Jiang. When Shangguan Zhaorong came out of the water, she also called him Big Brother Jiang. The back in his mind also called him Big Brother Jiang. Were they in contact before? Xie Ting and Shangguan Zhaorong must be in contact. But what about the woman in his mind? "Zhaorong, have you been here before?" Shangguan Zhaorong felt that Jiang Xiu's eyes were very sharp, as if they could pierce through her heart. She smiled and said, "No, this is Zhaorong's first time here. Moreover, this is a brothel. If I wasn't accompanying Gongzi, Zhaorong wouldn't come to this place." A flower boat swayed out of the river bank. When the boat appeared, The people on both sides of the river suddenly became absent-minded. Many people began to shout. It felt like when a celebrity appeared on Earth. Those fans would shout, "I love you. I want to give birth to your monkey." The people in front of them were more or less the same. However, they were throwing money on the boat. It's about to begin. Chapter 628. Didn't you say you were here to find a friend? Jiang Xiu looked into the distance and hesitated. I'm looking for that old friend, but I don't know if she's still here, and if I should go find her. Who is she? Jiang Xiu turned around and went down the restaurant. He planned to go there, and then make plans. In a brothel in the city, it was bustling with activity. Although it hadn't really started yet, the boat had already entered the water, which meant that this brothel would send a representative. The reputation of the brothel was very important. Since they were here to compete, then they had to compete for fame and win. Young master, you're here. Please come in. When Jiang Xiu stepped into the hall, it was very noisy inside. The guests were all dressed like dogs and horses. Gorgeously dressed beauties were shuttling back and forth between the banquet. When they saw acquaintances, they would greet them warmly and exchange a few words with them. The guests would then give them some money. Although it wasn't much, it couldn't beat the number of people. Where's the brothel keeper? The other party had sharp eyes. Seeing Jiang Xiu's unfamiliar face, he immediately went to find the brothel keeper. Although he was a stranger, he was a generous guest. Who is it? Don't you know that I'm very busy today? In the attic, there was a woman dressed in red with an indescribably elegant figure. In the eyes of the world, the procuress was a woman who was still gorgeously dressed even though she was old. However, the tender young girl in front of him, who looked like she was 18 years old, was unrestrained yet elegant. She gave off a clear feeling that she had emerged from the mud, but was not stained by it. Seeing her, his eyes lit up. It's this young master. Jiang Xiu looked up, his eyes cold with a bit of arrogance. When their eyes met, the other party was stunned, as if she was surprised to see Jiang Xiu. She was still here. The one in front of him was indeed a brothel keeper, an interesting one. It was just that she didn't need to become a brothel keeper. He didn't know what was wrong with her, but the elders of the sect didn't want to stay and sealed their cultivation to stay here. I don't know. Can't you see that I'm busy? Jiang Xiu took out a stack of banknotes. Does the procuress recognize this? That stack of banknotes was worth at least 10,000 taels of silver. Dozens of banknotes were worth hundreds of thousands of taels of silver. Since she was a procuress, how could she not know about money? Ouch, so it's you. She lifted her skirt and swayed her hips exaggeratedly as she walked down the stairs. She came to Jiang Xiu and reached out to take his banknotes. Jiang Xiu dodged without leaving a trace and came to a round table to sit down. Shengguan Zhaorong stood by his side. The procuress did not catch the money, but she was not angry. Instead, she smiled even more happily. Where did the young master come from? Jiang Xiu said Qingzhou. Qingzhou is a good place. It's full of outstanding people, and there are many sections. Qingzhou is full of heroes and immortals. She gently twisted her body and sat on Jiang Xiu's lap. At such a close distance, she didn't believe that she wouldn't be able to get the money. Jiang Xiu somehow managed to avoid it. I've been here before. Oh, more than once. The procuress's eyes sparkled as she stared at the banknotes. To be precise, twice. The procuress once again reached out to grab the banknotes in Jiang Xiu's hand. Jiang Xiu stretched his hand back, and the procuress's entire body was pressed against Jiang Xiu. Skin to skin. It was unknown if the procuress took advantage of Jiang Xiu or if Jiang Xiu took advantage of the procuress. Helpless, the procuress angrily said. But the young master looks unfamiliar. This old lady has never seen you before. Jiang Xiu said. Lonely Mountain looks back and has no home. I'm no longer the understanding flower of the world. I know who you are. You still dare to say that I'm not a patron. The procuress saw that the banknotes were out of reach and could only give up. You're not here to play. Jiang Xiu put the banknotes on the table and said, I want to ask you something. When was the second time I came? If you tell me, then this money is all yours. The procuress said, Young master, you can't play like this. How would I know when was the second time you came? Can I ask you a question? For example, will this old lady drink the wine in front of me? Jiang Xiu said. Perhaps you should ask yourself if you want to be disfigured again. Disfigured? The procuress's face was a bit unnatural, but it disappeared in a flash. The next moment, it was filled with a smile. Her face was as smooth as a baby's. It didn't look like she had been disfigured. This old lady is so beautiful. How could I be disfigured? Who dares to disfigure this old lady? She was indeed very beautiful. If she was willing to come down, no one else would be able to compete with her. Jiang Xiu said. It was someone who used a knife to disfigure her own face in grief. It's a pity that after a beautiful woman loses her face, her fate is destined to be tragic. In the end, she was mercilessly abandoned by her husband. You disfigured your face for him, but he was kidnapped by a beautiful woman. The procuress's face could no longer smile. Instead, it was replaced with a terrifying chill. Jiang Xiu said, forcing me to remove your scar. Why bother? When was the last time you saw me? The procuress took the banknotes from the table. Good people don't live long. Scourges live for 1,000 years. If this old lady's temper hadn't improved over the years, you would have suffered today. He counted the banknotes and then said, the last time I came was about 60 years ago. What happened? The procuress said. How would this old lady know? At most, you slept with a girl here and then left. How would I have the time to care about your business? Jiang Xiu said. I voted for the courtesan Belle. The procuress then noticed that there was a Shangguan Zhaorong dressed as a young master beside Jiang Xiu. Her eyesight was so sharp that she could see that the other was a girl. She looked pure, but her pure jade had long been ruined by a beast. There's nothing to say. It's boring and boring. What? The procuress said. You don't want to know. Speak. The procuress said. Don't bully this old lady. If you provoke this old lady, I'll expose you. You're just a sick cat now. If you go out, you'll be crushed to death. Jiang Xiu said. I'll remember sooner or later. The procuress's eyes flashed with a bit of panic. Jiang Xiu could even feel her body trembling slightly, as if she had remembered something terrible. Speak. The procuress said. I can't remember. But at this time, there was a burst of cheers from the pavilion. A girl appeared on the stage. She was wearing New Year's clothes and had a red veil over her head. She was the one competing for the courtesan Belle this year. My daughter has come out. The procuress immediately stood up with a smile on her face. Is it time yet? It's the auspicious time. The sound of gongs and drums rang out, and began to send the girl out. Across from the brothel was a proper tavern. Inside, Supreme Sparrow and his disciple were standing there. His eyes were filled with certainty. He really came here. Master's guess was not wrong. Supreme Sparrow said. If he is Jiang Luoxia, then he will definitely come here. The one who has the strongest relationship with Jiang Luoxia is this procuress. They have a life and death relationship. Who exactly is this brothel keeper? She actually has such a deep relationship with Jiang Luoxia. Supreme Sparrow said. I don't know the details, but I heard that Jiang Luoxia saved her before, and she also helped Jiang Luoxia. One time, when Jiang Luoxia was in trouble, she was the one who took action. Who would have thought that the procuress was actually an immortal king? Moreover, she suppressed the other two immortal kings and beat them to death. No way. The disciples' eyes were about to fall out of their sockets. So you're saying that master is not her match? Supreme Sparrow waved his hand. I can't fight, but as long as there is an immortal king, your master would have to run with his tail between his legs. Then why is she staying in this smoky brothel with all kinds of greasy men? Where is the dignity of an immortal king? Is this worth it? The disciple didn't understand. Supreme Sparrow was a bit absent-minded. Who knows, maybe only Jiang Luoxia knows why. She's coming out. The sound of gongs and drums rang out. Many people came out from inside and surrounded the brothel representative. They followed her into the sedan chair and walked towards the river. Jiang Xiu looked at this scene and felt a sense of familiarity, as if he had seen it before. In the next moment, This feeling intensified as he saw a scene. The young girl who was standing by the riverbank was sitting on a sedan chair with a red veil over her head. She turned her head and looked at him. She reached out and gently lifted a corner of the red veil, revealing a sharp and cute chin. Chapter 629. Although only the tip of the iceberg was revealed, Jiang Xiu's heart inexplicably trembled. He actually felt a sense of familiarity, and under this familiar feeling, there was an even stronger sense of fear. Jiang Xiu felt a chill run down his back, and a chill ran down the back of his head. Why was he afraid of knowing who this person was? Was it his heart's resistance? Or was it his instinctive perception of danger? The veil was never lifted, but Jiang Xiu seemed to see her sweet smile, as she once again put down the red veil with sadness and despair. Young master, young master. Jiang Xiu looked back and saw Shengguan Zhaorong looking at him with concern. Are you all right? Jiang Xiu shook his head. The sedan gradually went away, and he looked at the brothel keeper with a questioning gaze, hoping that the brothel keeper would immediately give him an answer. That year, that girl had also been sent out like this, so the brothel keeper would definitely know who it was. He reached out and grabbed the brothel keeper without any politeness. Who is running for the top courtesan position? The brothel keeper said. If you want to know, vote for the top courtesan yourself. You know I'm not talking about her. The brothel keeper had already left in a hurry. Today was a grand occasion for them. There were already many boats slowly coming out of the two rivers. When the girl reached the river, she was helped onto her own boat. Young master, should we hold her up? Jiang Xiu said. Hold her up, of course we'll hold her up. The two of them went to a restaurant on the riverbank. He had already spent a large amount of money to reserve a seat here. From this seat, he could see the river bank. Say if a top courtesan fell in love with a man, but there was a very strong person who wanted to take this top courtesan. If you were the top courtesan, what would you do? This was a very familiar story. Some people thought it was a femme fatale, while others thought it was a femme fatale. Her beauty allowed him to gain a beloved subject, but also caused her to face an even more terrifying plunder. There was a deafening cheer. It's coming out, it's coming out. Looking over, the boat slowly sailed out. Many people threw the flowers they had bought onto the boat. These flowers were specially made, and the price was very high. This was the meaning of the so-called flower boat. The procuress was standing at the bow of the ship, holding a red roll in her hand, flirting with the customers on both sides of the ship. Shengguan Zhaorong said. If it was Zhaorong, she would definitely choose to be with the person she loves. Jiang Xiu said. But that person is very powerful. He will kill you. So be it. Shengguan Zhaorong spoke very freely and calmly. Life and death in her mouth seemed to be an ordinary matter. She was completely different from the procuress. The procuress's choice moved Jiang Xiu more, and her ending moved Jiang Xiu more. 10,000 golden flowers. Take off the veil. Jiang Xiu had been generous from the start. Whoosh. Cheers erupted on both sides of the river. This was not a small sum. One golden flower was worth 1 platinum coin. 10,000 golden flowers would be worth 1 million gold coins. Even the nobles would have to sell everything they had. When they were piled up on the flower boat, the originally simple boat suddenly became luxurious. The girl who was standing on the flower boat also bowed to Jiang Xiu and saluted him. Taking off the veil was the first shot in the competition for the top beauty, so it was very important. Others were willing to bet 1 million gold coins on their looks. Of course, this top beauty's price would soar. Young master, what's wrong? Jiang Xiu held his head, the veins on his forehead throbbing. Every time they throbbed, he felt a sharp pain. The scene in front of him was not the same as before. It was very similar, but it should be from last time. Last time, Jiang Xiu had also given 100,000 gold coins. She also wanted to take off the veil on the flower boat. Blood, young master, you're bleeding. Jiang Xiu was in a lot of pain. Blood kept coming out of his nose, making him look very scary. Shengguan Zhaorong anxiously used her hand to cover it, but Jiang Xiu was like a madman trying to see that person's appearance. His vision was very blurry as the veil fell from his head. Young master, don't scare me. Jiang Xiu's nose was full of blood. Even breathing became difficult for him as he lost control of himself. Although she was standing on the deck, she was right in front of him. It was hazy and he could only see her tall figure. I know. Jiang Xiu roared. Young master, don't think about it, don't look. You'll die. Zhao Rong was very frightened. Her bloody hands wanted to stop Jiang Xiu's blood from flowing out. Tears came out of her eyes. I'm begging you, don't think about it anymore. Isn't it good to forget? Jiang Xiu said. It's heaven's concealment power. He finally knew the reason for his memory loss. At this moment, he could clearly feel the backlash of heaven's concealment power. It's you, Cheng Lingsu. This was definitely not the true heaven's concealment power. Otherwise, Jiang Xiu would already be dead. The power was not that strong. It was more likely the result of the Divine Emperor's great fate art, forcefully controlling Jiang Xiu's fate, not letting him know the truth, making him forget the past. Who are you? Jiang Xiu roared crazily. He wanted to know who the person under the red veil was. Is it you? The scene in front of him gradually became clear. The red veil fluttered in the wind, flying away from the slender fingertips painted with red nail polish. Suddenly, Jiang Xiu's entire body shook. All of his cries disappeared at this moment. His nose was still bleeding, but when he saw clearly, it was as if time had stopped. He was also stunned. A heart-wrenching pain, as if his heart was being torn apart. How could it be you? He cried out in shock. At this moment, everyone in the restaurant noticed the situation on his side. Zhao Rong was also stunned and did not move. Her eyes became very dim, as if her spirit had suddenly disappeared. In her memory, Jiang Xiu was piling up money. 100,000 golden flowers. 1 million. 100 million. The flower bed was piled with golden flowers. Under the lights of the two sides of the boat, it was very eye-catching. However, with so much golden light, the boat sank, causing everyone to cheer. The boat sank under the weight of gold. This was definitely a story that would last for eternity. How could it be you? Jiang Xiu seemed to have lost his ability to think. It was as if his head had been pierced by a bullet. His body fell backward stiffly. Zhao Rong wanted to reach out to pull him up, but it was too late. With a bang, his whole body fell to the ground with his arms and legs spread out. His eyes were staring at the ground from beginning to end, but there was no trace of life in them. Supreme Sparrow and his disciple were opposite and just happened to see this scene. His disciple said in astonishment, "Not good, something seems to have happened to Sect Master Jiang. He seems to be bleeding nonstop." Supreme Sparrow was also stunned. This happened all of a sudden. "Master, what should we do?" Supreme Sparrow was also in a mess. He did not know if Jiang Xiu's situation was serious, or if he should show himself. Once he showed himself, he would be exposed. Jiang Xiu's next thing might be stopped, and he might not be able to find anything to use against him. He should be fine, right? He was an immortal king. If someone attacked at such a close distance, even if the other party was also an immortal king, he would definitely be able to sense it. He could not think of any possibility that Jiang Xiu's injuries would be so serious that he would be in danger. Hence, he decided to wait and see. "Young master." Shengguan Zhaorong reached out and grabbed Jiang Xiu's hand. She placed her hand on his pulse and her tear-stained face slowly calmed down. Her eyes flashed with a strange light. When Jiang Xiu woke up again, he was lying on a warm boat. Moreover, it was very quiet outside. There was not a single sound. There was also a warm light shining in through the wooden window and onto the study table. He realized that it should be the second day. He was even rescued and brought here. The furnishings were the same. Even the table was the same. There was a unique fragrance on the sheets. This was his old friend's room. The door was pushed open and Zhao Rong came in with a faceplate. Beside her was the old procuress. "You are from Jialan?" "Yes," the procuress said. "How long have you been with him?" "Less than a year." The procuress said. "He is becoming more and more unrestrained. In less than a year, he already laid his hands on you. He used to be very picky. It seems like after becoming a sick cat, he can't be arrogant anymore. If there is something to eat, he will eat." Zhao Rong placed the faceplate on the table, and lowered her charming face in embarrassment. No, it's not like that. If it wasn't for the fact that they had encountered a desperate situation, Shangguan Zhaorong felt that taking the last step with Jiang Xiu would be very difficult. It might even be impossible. Shy. Haha. The procuress had been in brothels for many years and knew how to use this trick. That guy is awake. Chapter 630. Shangguan Zhaorong brought a hot towel over and sat on the edge of the bed, gently wiping Jiang Xiu's face. She was very careful, but there was a trace of indescribable loneliness in her eyes. The procuress sat down behind a long table. There was a zither on the table. She casually plucked the strings, letting out a pleasant but chaotic sound. Do you see it? Do you know who it is? Jiang Xiu's face was as indifferent as ever. I see it. But this result was something that Jiang Xiu could never have imagined. When that scene appeared in his mind, his heart faintly ached and his cheeks tightened. I already told you you didn't want to see it. Jiang Xiu got off the bed and walked to the window. Outside was a quiet courtyard. I really didn't expect it to be her. Now I'm even more confused. That face, that person, had once been his spiritual support. She had been his spiritual sustenance ever since he came to the immortal Martial continent, even though everything had already collapsed on Earth. How did she appear here? What was her identity? My matter, is it related to her? The procuress nodded and said, I vaguely saw the first time you saw her. That excitement and joy. But what she brought you was your disappearance and your confirmed death more than 10 years ago. Jiang Xiu said. What exactly happened? The procuress did not reply. Since you remember, then take your time to think about it. It's not convenient for me to say too much. Moreover, what I saw might not be the entire truth. Indeed, everyone's perspective was different. Different perspectives would lead to different feelings. Otherwise, how could there be so many unjust and false cases in the world? Did that girl become the top courtesan? The procuress said. Of course. You were so generous, throwing out 10,000 golden flowers in one go. Even the bridal chamber was prepared for you. Who knew that you would faint for an entire night? If you want to go over now, that's fine. How could Jiang Xiu be in the mood? Moreover, this old friend knew Jiang Xiu's character. He was just joking. Let that girl stand in the courtyard. Jiang Xiu had a very strong feeling towards the courtyard outside the window. Not long later, that girl gracefully appeared in the courtyard. The sunlight was very dazzling, shining on the green grass in the courtyard. The sunlight dazzled Jiang Xiu's eyes. He saw Cheng Lingran dressed in ancient clothing running in the courtyard. She was as happy as a child, giggling nonstop. Big brother Jiang, come chase me. Chase me. Come. Jiang Xiu's head began to hurt again. Zhaorong anxiously called out, Young master, don't think about it anymore. Quickly stop. The brothel keeper's face also changed greatly. Blood kept gushing out from Jiang Xiu's nose. His nose was stuffed, which made it difficult for him to breathe. It looked very scary. How can this be? What's going on? Jiang Xiu couldn't recall anything. His nose was already bleeding all over his chest. How can you be like this? Jiang Xiu did not answer the procuress and looked at Zhaorong with astonishment. Zhaorong showed a worried face. Young master, you must pay attention to your body, it's too dangerous. Yes, the power of the heavenly mysteries was enough to destroy everything. Those who tried to challenge it would not have a good ending. Jiang Xiu kept wiping his nose's blood with a towel. What happened next? How much do you know? The procuress said. Basically, I don't know what happened after you left for the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. I heard you went missing, so I went to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. I didn't find any clues, only a lot of rumors. After all these years, I have no way to prove it. Even if I can prove it, I can't do anything. Jiang Xiu threw the towel into the basin and said, Let's go to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. Ah, the procuress said. Are you looking for death? You're just a sick cat, and you want to go to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain? Do you want to take down the people who harmed you and let you die again when they know you're back? Indeed, to be able to cause Jiang Luoxia, who was at his peak, to suffer, they were definitely all celestial kings. Given Jiang Xiu's current situation, once he attracted the suspicion of those people, they would definitely make a move against him. In truth, the brothel keeper felt that it was a very big risk for him to come looking for her. But she also knew that Jiang Xiu wanted to know the truth too much. How did you lose your memory? It's too infuriating. Jiang Xiu now knew that he did not lose his memory, but that Cheng Lingsu used the Great Fate technique to shield it, forming a layer of heavenly mysteries. He did not know the specific reason, but the purpose was to make him unable to remember what happened at that time. How about, you accompany me to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain? The procuress looked at Jiang Xiu in disbelief and was very surprised. Are you begging me? Jiang Xiu said. How is this begging? Okay, come to my room tonight. Shangguan Zhaorong's face revealed a strange expression, and she shyly turned away. Jiang Xiu frowned. Why did I go to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain that year? The procuress said. Of course it was to obtain more power. Many people do not know how to walk the path of the immortal king, and you are the same. However, you have an advantage over others. The Tianqing school has the immortal emperor level cultivation method, heavenly reflection, which is ranked 9th in the immortal martial continent. You should have received some inspiration. Even with our relationship, we can't ask too much about this kind of thing. Indeed, the cultivation methods of sex were taboo, and generally would not be touched. Of course, discussing cultivation experience was one thing, but asking about other people's cultivation methods was absolutely forbidden. Jiang Xiu said. It was to find the path of the immortal emperor. I'm afraid only this point can attract Jiang Xiu. Did I go alone, or was there someone else? The procuress said. This all happened after you left here, so I don't know. Are you hungry? Eat something first. Jiang Xiu really wanted to know what Cheng Lingren's appearance had done to him, and why Cheng Lingsu had used the Great Destiny technique to conceal all of this. He hadn't seen the procuress for a long time, and after eating, they didn't talk about these things. These years, the procuress had always been here, and she didn't get tired of it. She actually said that her greatest joy was to see her daughters grow up into great families. This was simply destroying his worldview. Shangguan Zhaorong was a Tongfang maidservant, and Jiang Xiu and the procuress had not seen each other for many years, so she did not attend. She was alone in the courtyard, slowly pacing back and forth, her head lowered, looking at the tips of her feet. Her face was filled with a gloomy expression, filled with worry, very different from her usual clear and bright appearance. Your servant girl is not bad. It seems like you like her very much. Jiang Xiu sighed. He liked the Shangguan Zhaorong from that night more than after she fell into the water. Perhaps falling into the water was a knot in his heart, as if Zhaorong was tainted the moment she fell into the water, becoming impure. Have you heard of Buzhou? The procuress said. Of course I've heard of it. And I think you told me. I told you. Jiang Xiu was very surprised. The first time he heard of it, it was also Shangguan Zhaorong who took care of him. Before this, he didn't even know there was a Western Zhou. I told you last time. The procuress said. Is this also a part of your memory loss? Let's not worry about that for now. What did you say about Buzhou? Jiang Xiu said. You should have heard of the legend of Buzhou's goddess. It is said that a goddess appeared after the Buzhou god fell. She saved the land from floods and allowed another world to descend, creating the immortal martial arts of today. Last time you only told me that there was such a goddess, but you didn't mention that it was her arrival that created the immortal martial arts of today. The procuress was quite shocked by this news. Jiang Xiu said. After that, every once in a while, the goddess would borrow another person's body and descend here to see her own masterpiece. Is it related to your concubine servant girl? Jiang Xiu first nodded, then shook his head. He wasn't sure himself. I also don't know. However, when he mentioned the formation of the immortal martial continent, he thought of a possibility. The immortal martial continent was the original world that merged with the descended world. Then what about Zhaorong? Could it be that the original Zhaorong merged with the goddess? But in his memories, there was a girl who looked exactly like Cheng Lingran, and she called him Big Brother Jiang. Was it a coincidence? After all, his surname was Jiang. A girl would most likely call him Big Brother Jiang. Come with me to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. I want to clarify things. Then come to my room tonight. The procuress's expression was also very deep. Chapter 631. Just as the brothel keeper had said, it was too dangerous to go to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. Therefore, Jiang Xiu wanted to take the brothel keeper to be his bodyguard. However, it seemed too conspicuous to do so. If he was Jiang Xiu and was only a passerby, how could the brothel keeper treat him so well? However, after all these years, they already thought that Jiang Xiu was dead and would not care too much about this matter. This was Jiang Xiu's only fortune. He must go to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. In the end, the brothel keeper did not follow him. Jiang Xiu's only son could go to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain in peace. However, it would be too conspicuous if the brothel keeper followed him. Not to mention, they still needed to investigate what had happened in the past. However, the Supreme Sparrow had already set his eyes on Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu and Shengguan Zhaorong had departed in the wee hours of the same day. Usually the guests at the brothel would also leave at this time. It was not strange. Before leaving, the brothel keeper called Jiang Xiu to the side and told him something that Jiang Xiu did not want to know. Shui Wuyao has gone mad. Most likely he also experienced what happened in the past. What, he is also there? The brothel keeper said, yes. Jiang Xiu was extremely shocked. Shui Wuyao was another old friend of his. This person was a passionate person who loved to drink and kill. However, he would never kill a nameless person. When he was on the green spirit list, Feng Wuchen and Shui Wuyao had whistled through the sky. This person's sword skills were definitely not below Elder Wen Jian. His sword was half of his soul. He is also mad. How did he go mad? The brothel keeper shook her head. Now he is bound by shackles and stares blankly at the wall every day. I secretly went to his sect to see him for a while. He is still in a daze and completely useless. Jiang Xiu said. But he's not in Song province. Why? Jiang Xiu's heart ached as he recalled the misty sword dance's long robes fluttering in the wind. Speaking of which, this person was very interesting. After Jiang Luo became famous, his cultivation speed increased by leaps and bounds. This person came because of his fame and fought with Jiang Xiu. In the end, Jiang Xiu was defeated. He actually pestered Jiang Xiu to become friends with him. This was the first time that Jiang Xiu had seen such a shameless and unrestrained person. Which one of them didn't feel indignant after losing and returned home to cultivate bitterly, hoping to wash away the shame one day? That guy even said that he looked like a girl, and that he had reincarnated in the wrong body. He should have been a girl, so he could be in love with Jiang Xiu. In short, he was gay and very open-minded. How could he go crazy? No one knows the details. The brothel keeper said. Such a sword Dao immortal king was crippled like this. Of course, his sect was unwilling and pulled him to Heavenly Emperor Mountain. However, once he reached the foot of Heavenly Emperor Mountain, they couldn't pull him up no matter what. It seemed that he was very scared. Jiang Xiu said. Is Heavenly Emperor Mountain very scary? It's just a mountain. The brothel keeper shook her head. Jiang Xiu looked toward Shengguan Zhaorong. She might know some of his origins, but Zhaorong also shook her head and said, Heavenly Emperor Mountain is an ancient mountain range. There's nothing special about it. Jiang Xiu asked, You don't know anything? He knows how to kill people. The brothel keeper said, The sword in his hand has become sharper, and his sword cultivation has improved by leaps and bounds. After all, after reaching the Immortal King realm, especially for a sword cultivator, it is extremely difficult for him to improve his sword cultivation. He's really crazy and terrifying. His hair is disheveled, and he looks a bit like the old lunatic from back then. He's even crazier than the old lunatic. Jiang Xiu couldn't believe that the carefree Shui Wuyao was related to the old lunatic. Right now he doesn't remember anything else. He's even taking care of himself. However, as soon as he comes into contact with the Sword King's style is revealed. Moreover, when the sword is drawn, it must see blood and kill people. If he doesn't kill people, he won't be able to calm down. Jiang Xiu said, So strange. This indeed sounded like a mental disorder, and not something concealed by the mysteries of the heavens. Could it be that I'm not the only one who met with mishap on Heavenly Emperor Mountain? What exactly happened? The brothel keeper said. If you don't go to Heavenly Emperor Mountain, you can go see Shui Wuyao. However, I'm afraid he won't recognize you. You decide. It seemed that the brothel keeper didn't want him to go to Heavenly Emperor Mountain when she told him this news. After all, there was a great risk. Jiang Xiu said. It's the same. If I go to see you and then see Shui Wuyao, Jiang Luoxia's traces will be too obvious. These two were Jiang Xiu's best friends in the past. It would arouse too much suspicion. The disciple of the Supreme Vermilion Bird who was guarding the brothel woke up the Supreme Vermilion Bird who was meditating cross-legged. Teacher, he is coming out, it seems he is leaving. Indeed, the Supreme Vermilion Bird came to the window immediately. Indeed, he saw Jiang Xiu coming out. He summoned the flying boat and headed to the south. South, he is going to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. He is still going to investigate what happened in the past. And you still say it's not Jiang Luoxia. Teacher, what should we do? The Supreme Vermilion Bird said. Of course we will follow him. He gives me a feeling of urgency. Or does he feel that he is being secretive? So what if he knows what happened in the past? With your current strength, you can do nothing. The flying boat did not fly fast at night. With the full moon hanging in the sky and the black clouds filling the air, it carried the silence and depth of the night. People who were timid would not be willing to travel at night. Young master, must we go to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain? Yes, we must go. Jiang Xiu felt Zhao Rong's warm body close to him. She hugged him and said softly, Young master, Zhao Rong is scared, very scared. Scared? Jiang Xiu said. There is nothing to be scared of. It is only a mountain. At most, something shameful happened on it. Once the ugly and dark things are exposed, they are worthless. Since he went out because of the sky mirror, although something happened along the way, he still went to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain in the end. Jiang Xiu had reason to suspect that there might be an opportunity to become an immortal emperor in the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. Then, there might be a human-shaped distortion and a shocking change. There were only two possibilities. One was that it was a trap set against him. The other was that it was an accident caused by the opportunity to become an immortal emperor. And with the appearance of Cheng Lingran, the possibility of it being a fight for the opportunity to become an immortal emperor decreased. It was more likely that it was a trap set against him. The seed of hatred sprouted in his heart. He did not expect that Cheng Lingsu's hand would stretch so far. You are your immortal emperor, and I am my Tianqing school principal. Everyone is at peace. Why did you interfere with my life? Could it be that you want to control my fate? Young master, if I die, will you be sad? Jiang Xiu looked back. Zhao Rong's beautiful face was frowning slightly. There was resentment in her eyes, and she looked pitiful. Of course I will. You can always stay by my side. Other than Cheng Lingran, he could not say any touching words of love. His heart was once blinded by arrogance and bloody betrayal. Now his heart was as cold as ice. However, ordinary tenderness could not melt it. Young master. Jiang Xiu pressed his head hard again. Blood flowed from his nose again. On the Heavenly Emperor Mountain, Jiang Xiu pointed a sword at Cheng Lingran. It seemed that he was questioning her. Cheng Lingran's tears were flying. Young master. Jiang Xiu suddenly closed his eyes. He saw his sword stabbing out. He felt a heart-wrenching pain, but he saw a splash of blood. I killed her? His nose was full of blood. He breathed with difficulty. He could not believe it. Shengguan Zhaorong looked at Jiang Xiu sadly. Will you kill her again? Jiang Xiu wiped the blood from his nose with his hand. He did not hear Shengguan Zhaorong's words clearly just now. He was still in a violent shock. Did he kill Cheng Lingran? Why did he kill her? Young master, don't think about it anymore. Your body can't take it. She let the flying boat land beside the stream. Zhao Rong went down to fetch some water. She washed the blood from Jiang Xiu's face, and let Jiang Xiu recover his former handsome appearance. However, Jiang Xiu sat on a rock beside the stream and lost his mind. Why did he kill her with a sword? What did she do to him? He remembered Cheng Lingran's betrayal on earth. His eyes were indescribably sad. And in this sadness, there was endless indifference. How about, we don't go to the heavenly emperor mountain? Shangguan Zhaorong said in a low voice. Why not? Shangguan Zhaorong said. If this continues, young master, you will not be able to withstand the power of the heavenly secrets. You will die. Jiang Xiu's outbursts were getting more and more frequent. She believed that the closer he got to the truth, the stronger the power of the heavenly secrets would be. Sooner or later, he would not be able to withstand it. How do you know it's the power of the heavenly secrets? Jiang Xiu looked at her coldly. Who are you? Chapter 632. Jiang Xiu had always been suspicious of Shangguan Zhaorong's identity. Although there were many times when he felt that she was close and natural, as if nothing had changed, there were some things that could not be explained. For example, Shangguan Zhaorong was too suspicious. Jiang Xiu had never revealed what had happened to him. Not even the procuress, but Shangguan Zhaorong seemed to know that he had suffered a backlash from the concealment of heaven's secrets. Who are you? Just who are you? Jiang Xiu's eyes stared at Shangguan Zhaorong. It was very late at night, and the moonlight was especially dim in the mountains. The creek flowed softly, making a sound. Jiang Xiu's eyes were somewhat cold. He knew that if the person in front of him was not Shangguan Zhaorong, he had no reason to hate the other. But he was unwilling. He remembered the Shangguan Zhaorong from that night. She should not have her body taken over like this. Young master, what's wrong? I am Zhaorong. Shangguan Zhaorong met Jiang Xiu's black eyes that were emitting a cold light, and her face revealed a panicked expression. No, you're not. Jiang Xiu said. Do you want me to die? Why, so many years have passed. From Earth to immortal martial, it's already been 3,000 years, almost 4,000 years. Why are you still not willing to let go? Why are you tangling yourself in the past? Last time, was it also your plan? Shangguan Zhaorong was very confused. Young master, what are you talking about? I don't understand a single word. Her jet black eyes shone brightly. Under the moonlight, they were incomparably clear beside the stream. Her eyes flashed with innocence and panic, as if she was a frightened deer. Seeing her like this, Jiang Xiu secretly blamed himself for being too emotional. Don't try to deny it, goddess. Jiang Xiu's eyes flashed with sadness. The moment Shangguan Zhaorong fell into the water in the Buzhou Imperial Palace, you had already descended. The great and mysterious ancient goddess. The ancient goddess that was born because of the fall of God Buzhou. Clang. Jiang Xiu pulled out a long sword. The blade of the sword emitted a terrifying cold light under the night sky. Young master. Shangguan Zhaorong's beautiful face turned pale as she looked at Jiang Xiu in horror. Her feet involuntarily stepped back, but under her feet were fine rocks and the cobblestones by the stream. She tripped and almost fell. Young master, I'm really not some goddess, I'm Shangguan Zhaorong. You're Zhaorong. Jiang Xiu's eyes were scarier than the cold and emotionless sword in his hand. He approached Shangguan Zhaorong step by step. I just didn't expect that you would be related to Lingran. Do you know that I'm not dead yet, so you want me to die again? No. Shangguan Zhaorong kept retreating, looking in horror at Jiang Xiu, who seemed to have gone mad. With her cultivation, she was no match for Jiang Xiu at all. He could take her life with just a light slash of his sword. I was thinking, if I could kill you earlier, would you have a way to descend again? Young master. Shangguan Zhaorong's face was as pale as a sheet of white paper. In the distant dark clouds, Wushang Sparrow and his disciple were hiding. His disciple shouted excitedly and helplessly. Master, why did Jiang Luoxia suddenly want to kill his maid? Even the Supreme Sparrow was stunned. Just what in the world was going on right now? What's going on? He won't really do it, right? Everything happened too suddenly. Say it. I'll give you a chance to explain everything clearly. If you don't, I'd rather you leave here with these secrets forever. Jiang Xiu wanted to recover his memory for two reasons. First, he wanted to satisfy his curiosity and desire for knowledge. Second, he wanted to prove that this matter was related to some people in the Tianxing school. He wanted to take back the position of the Lord in the name of sin, and punish all the traitors who betrayed him. But now that he knew the truth, he didn't want to get involved in it anymore. As for taking back the position of the Lord, he had the great God-sealing skill in his hands. When he mastered it, he would definitely be able to take back the position of the Lord, and even reach the divine emperor realm that he couldn't reach before. Say it, or I'll make you disappear from this world. His eyes were extremely resolute. Once Jiang Luoxiao made a decision, he would never change it. Young master. Tears fell from Shangguan Zhaorong's eyes. She shook her head gently. Her eyes were full of fear, helplessness, and more than that, confusion. Looking at such tearful eyes, anyone would doubt their own judgment, but Jiang Xiu wouldn't. You're courting death. Jiang Xiu's sword had already stabbed out. The sharp sword light broke through the void and stabbed into Shangguan Zhaorong's body fiercely. Even the air was pierced by the sword. How could the delicate body of an ordinary person withstand it? The tip of the sword pierced into her body, and blood flowed out. The bright red color dyed her white clothes red, like a beautiful plum blossom blooming in the cold snow. God, he really killed her. Wushang Sparrow and his disciple cried out in surprise. What's going on? Wushang Sparrow knew Jiang Xiu's temperament. Although he was domineering and looked down on the world, he was definitely not a person who would kill indiscriminately. He must have a reason to kill. Moreover, the person who was so close to him was his woman. How could he be so heartless? Shangguan Zhaorong's eyes widened in disbelief. She lowered her head to look at the long sword that had pierced her body and the bright red wound. She even suspected that the pain of being stabbed by the sword was an illusion, but the facts told her that it wasn't. Jiang Xiu really wanted to kill her. The pain and fear made her beautiful face break out in a cold sweat. She painfully and desperately said, "Young master, do you really want Zhaorong to die?" Jiang Xiu's sword moved forward. The sword was very sharp, capable of splitting mountains and breaking jade. Even the slightest breeze could cut through hair. Her body was like tofu under the sword's edge. It went in even more. Zhaorong opened her mouth in pain, but she couldn't make a sound. "Didn't you say that your life is mine? Since that's the case, if I want you to die, then you will die." The muscles under Jiang Xiu's eyes twitched fiercely. Although he was looking directly at Zhaorong, his eyes were unfocused and numb, like a cold and empty soul. Young master." A teardrop fell from Zhaorong's eyes and ran down her cheek. It fell on the stone egg dripping with blood and shattered into pieces. "You are really so heartless." Shangguan Zhaorong finally roared in pain and madness. A fierce light burst out from the wound that was pierced by the sword. The light was dazzling, ancient and boundless and powerful. It was so powerful that it made the world tremble. At this moment, the entire mountain range trembled. The clouds in the sky swept over, the trees on the ground swayed, and the stream became still. What is going on? In the sky, the flying boat of the Supreme Sparrow in the dark clouds was blown away and rolled in the sky. The Supreme Sparrow and his disciple grabbed the flying boat in a sorry state and almost fell down. How can a mere mortal girl contain such a powerful force in her body? Even the Supreme Sparrow, an immortal monarch, was shocked by this power. She is definitely not an ordinary person. The entire mountain range was howling in grief. The strong light covered the heaven and earth, and nothing else could be seen. Jiang Xiu was in the middle of it. He closed his eyes in shock, and his long hair and clothes were fluttering violently in the wind. As expected, she is not. If it was Zhaorong, how could she have such a heaven-defying power? Only an ancient goddess would have such a terrifying power. Even an immortal monarch would be shocked and afraid of her. Die for me. At this moment, Jiang Xiu's power also burst forth in an instant, radiating a dazzling light. Seeing that the long sword was forcibly pushed out by the opponent's power, he suddenly stabbed forward again. Boom! The power exploded, shaking the heavens and the earth. As expected, the Supreme Sparrow saw the power in Jiang Xiu's body. He revealed an expression as if he had expected it. Jiang Xiu's natal divine weapon had already recovered. No, this power is not only at the level of a heavenly deity. Heavens, this is the power of a great heavenly deity. The Supreme Sparrow was shocked and lost his self-control again. This cultivation speed was too exaggerated. Flying 90,000 miles was not enough to describe Jiang Xiu's cultivation speed. How is this possible? His disciple was also dumbstruck. Did the 3 words Jiang Luoxia really have any magic power? Was he really here to torture and humiliate everyone in the immortal martial continent? Even if he disappeared, it had only been 60 years. Moreover, he knew that Jiang Xiu had just broken through to the heavenly deity realm when he came to the Tianqing school. Chapter 633. He really is a great deity. The power on Jiang Xiu's body was definitely that of a great deity at the consummate level of the wind laws. The blade of his sword was imbued with an incomparably violent gale. What in the world happened? Wushang Sparrow's mind was completely stupefied. Jiang Xiu's mate had erupted with a power that even immortal kings were afraid of. And Jiang Xiu had actually reached the great deity level in a few short months. Everything had already exceeded Wushang Sparrow's expectations. He felt that he already didn't recognize this world. It was completely incomprehensible. Master, what in the world is going on? Wushang Sparrow shook his head, unable to answer. Jiang Luoxia would never speak without thinking. The results have proven that he was right. His mate is not an ordinary person. Jiang Xiu was very calm, but even more so, he was terrifyingly decisive. You really are a goddess. At this very moment, Shangguan Zhaorong already had no way to deny it. You want to kill me just to prove this point? Her eyes flashed with pain. This was definitely not physical pain but mental pain. Jiang Xiu's eyes were ice cold, his long sword continuously piercing into her. He wanted to kill her. Killing me is equivalent to killing Shangguan Zhaorong. In the past, Jiang Xiu didn't understand why the descending goddess behavior was so similar to Shangguan Zhaorong. But when Jiang Xiu told the procuress about the immortal martial continent's formation after the descent of the goddess, he suddenly understood. The reason why the goddess descended and occupied Shangguan Zhaorong's body was the same. Shangguan Zhaorong didn't die from then on. She had fused with the goddess. The goddess was Shangguan Zhaorong, and Shangguan Zhaorong was also a goddess. She had Shangguan Zhaorong's memories, and also Shangguan Zhaorong's personality, but at the same time, she also had the goddess thoughts and memories. Yes, killing you is equivalent to killing Zhaorong. Jiang Xiu's expression was firm, and his eyes were ice cold. But you are already not the real Shangguan Zhaorong. Jiang Xiu said. Tell me, what happened 60 years ago? What happened at the Heavenly Emperor Mountain? Shangguan Zhaorong watched as the sword continued to stab into her body under the strong light. She was too weak. Just like on Earth, a mere demigod could cremate her. No, I don't understand. Young master, I am Zhaorong. Her eyes were filled with grief as she looked at Jiang Xiu pleadingly. Don't kill Zhaorong. Jiang Xiu said. Tell me and maybe I'll let you go. Say what? Shangguan Zhaorong's face was pained. Zhaorong does not know what young master wants me to say. No, young master. It hurts. Zhaorong will die. Jiang Xiu said. What's your relationship with Qingling Ran? Zhaorong does not know Qingling Ran. A trace of pain flashed across Jiang Xiu's eyes. Why don't you admit it? I already saw it. I already saw Qingling Ran. Tell me, are you Qingling Ran? Zhaorong really does not know Qingling Ran. Her pained face twisted. Jiang Xiu roared. Enough, stop acting. If you are not Shangguan Zhaorong, how can you have such power? Your true body did not descend, but if you did, I believe you should be at the Divine Emperor level. She shook her head in pain. It's true, young master, I really am Shangguan Zhaorong. If you don't admit it, then die. Jiang Xiu's sword pierced her eyes little by little. She opened her mouth wide in pain as the tip of the sword came out from her back. Her entire body froze, and any movement would bring severe pain. Leave her body, or else you will die. She shook her head and did not speak. Let's die together. She grasped Jiang Xiu's sword that pierced her body, and suddenly pulled it out. An incomparably dazzling light burst out from inside, and she screamed in pain. The light burst out, and the entire mountain range above the 9 heavens was as bright as day. A fierce wave of air pushed out like a tsunami, forming a powerful shock wave that swept past. Zhaorong! Jiang Xiu screamed in horror. He rushed over against the strong light and supported her. Zhao Rong's body was twitching, and blood kept pouring out of her mouth. No, don't die. Young master. Shangguan Zhaorong stretched out her slender hand with difficulty and stroked Jiang Xiu's marble-like face. Don't be sad. Zhaorong will always be your maid. A line of tears hung from the corner of her eyes. Zhaorong. Jiang Xiu painfully closed his eyes, feeling the last touch of Zhaorong's gentle touch on his face. This is for you. In her hand was a blood-red pill. What is this? Zhaorong said with difficulty. The essence blood of the true god Buzhou's coiling dragon snake. Jiang Xiu said. You are Zhaorong? Young master, don't forget Zhaorong. Blood gushed out of her mouth. She struggled to close her eyes and cut off her last trace of life. Above the clouds in the sky, a huge image of a goddess slowly condensed into a cloud. Zhaorong. Jiang Xiu thought of the first time he saw her. At that time, Jiang Xiu looked at everything coldly, thinking that this maid would be like the countless passers-by in his life, quickly passing by. But now, he would never be able to forget her. Dead. The two people on the flying boat were also a bit sad. Actually, Jiang Luoxia didn't want to kill her? The disciple said. Right? Master, she was the one who pulled out the sword. If she didn't, with the immortal doctor's methods, she should have been able to keep her life. The Supreme Sparrow nodded. It's a pity that she pulled out the sword. That maid should have known that pulling out the sword would kill her, but she still pulled it out. A tear fell from Jiang Xiu's eye. In the sky above his head was a goddess cloud image. On earth, after Xieting was burned to death, there was a goddess cloud image in the sky. The one who died was Xieting, but the goddess survived. This time was probably the same. The one who died was Shangguan Zhaorong, but the goddess also survived, including the cloud image in the sky of Buzhou. This might be a secret technique, or it might be a possibility. Jiang Xiu dug a very, very deep pit at the side. It was at least 3 feet deep, so that Shangguan Zhaorong's corpse would be spared from the pain of snakes and insects. He wrote on the tombstone, Shangguan Zhaorong's tomb, signed by Jiang Xiu. Perhaps the soul had been tainted, but the body was clean. It completely belonged to Shangguan Zhaorong. He placed red candles on the grave and placed wine cups. 1 cup, 1 cup. It's also a title for you. He sat on the grave and watched the sunrise and sunset. He didn't know how much time had passed. One day, when the sun set, he woke up and left. Seeing Jiang Xiu leave, the Supreme Sparrow and the disciples on the flying boat regained their spirit. Okay, we're finally going to go. We've been waiting for so long. Let's follow him. The flying boat shuttled through the sky one after the other. Jiang Xiu's destination did not change. It was still the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. However, Jiang Xiu would never have thought that not long after he left, flowers bloomed on Shangguan Zhaorong's grave. Originally, the graveyard was barren. Even the soil was loosened, and there were many crushed stones on it. Green grass and flowers kept growing from below, blooming and bearing fruit. In the next moment, it became lush. After a few days, Jiang Xiu arrived at the city of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. This place was as lively as the Skyline City. However, there were no sects nearby, and the legend of the Heavenly Emperor was spread here. According to the legend, there was once an immortal emperor-level powerhouse who called himself the Heavenly Emperor. The Heavenly Emperor Mountain was his Dao field. Those who were fated could obtain an emperor-level opportunity here. Of course, the people here believed it without a doubt. Many people felt that they would be the next Heavenly Emperor. For this reason, they worked hard to cultivate and constantly strengthen themselves. We're finally here. On the flying boat, Jiang Xiu looked at the continuous mountain range in front of him. It was different from the mountains in the past. The mountain range here was covered with thick clouds and mist. He could only see the mountain range under the clouds, but he couldn't see the true appearance of the mountain range. He finally understood why there were no sects here. Most likely, the clouds and mist didn't contain spiritual qi. It was not suitable for cultivation. Even the spiritual trees and great demons wouldn't grow in the mountains. Jiang Xiu once again saw the scene. It was his memories. Blood flowed out of his nose. If it wasn't for Jiang Xiu forcefully enduring the backlash of the power of heaven's secret's concealment, he would also have recalled the past. That was why the goddess was flustered. Because if this continued, Jiang Xiu would know the truth of what happened back then sooner or later. That was why she let slip that Jiang Xiu couldn't withstand the power of heaven's secret's concealment. He took out the essence blood of God Buzhou's coiling flying dragon snake, which Zhao Rong gave him before she died, and swallowed it. Chapter 634. Jiang Xiu still didn't know the exact effects of consuming the blood essence pill. However, one thing was for sure, the blood essence of an ancient deity could greatly strengthen one's life force. And the power of the backlash from concealing the mysteries of the heavens would destroy one's life force the most. It would make it impossible for one to survive. Indeed, the backlash from continuously peeking into the mysteries of the heavens would become stronger each time. His body could no longer bear it. However, there was still some distance before he knew the truth. It was not enough for him to hold on until the end. And this blood essence pill, Jiang Xiu had reason to suspect that it was Zhao Rong's final help to him. It made him recall what happened 60 years ago. After consuming the blood essence, the medicinal effect did not burst forth violently all of a sudden. Instead, it was very gentle. Most likely this was done deliberately by Zhao Rong. The blood essence of an ancient deity was not something a great deity like him could bear. Once the medicinal effect was too strong and his body could not bear it, the result would be death. Overdose. However, the blood essence only emitted a red light. It was enough to resist the backlash from the power of the heavens. It formed a kind of tenacious life force. His head hurt as if it was being chewed to pieces. However, he still endured it. He widened his pair of blood-red eyes and headed towards the heavenly Emperor Mountain. The flying boat found the location in his memory. Is it here? Jiang Xiu jumped down from the flying boat. In the next moment he appeared in the mountain. Teacher, he jumped down. The supreme vermilion bird nodded slightly. With his judgment, Jiang Xiu should have remembered many things. Jiang Xiu had directly arrived at his destination. What exactly happened in the past? I am very curious. How could such an all-powerful figure like the sovereign of a generation suddenly disappear? 1,000-mile dam can be destroyed by an ant's nest. The supreme vermilion bird firmly believed that no matter how strong and impregnable a person was, once someone dug out his weakness, no matter how small it was, he would collapse. Jiang Xiu's disappearance was definitely passive. He should have been defeated. Who dares to harm him? There was a consensus in the Tianqing school that Jiang Luoxia was no ordinary celestial king. He had been in the celestial king realm for hundreds of years, and still had the heavenly mirror, which was ranked 9th in the celestial martial arts. If he really wanted to escape, no matter how many celestial kings there were, they wouldn't be able to stop him unless they put their lives on the line. However, which celestial king was willing to put their lives on the line to stop Jiang Xiu? In theory, unless it was those people who stood at the very top of the pyramid in the immortal martial continent, they wouldn't have any interactions with Jiang Xiu. He wouldn't attack Jiang Xiu. If they had really taken action, the Ji Daozong and the others wouldn't have tried so hard to hide the truth. They saw that Jiang Xiu had walked to the top of a cliff. Below the cliff, clouds of smoke were floating. He stretched out his body and looked down. The gray clouds were rolling, and below the clouds was a huge whirlpool space. It was this whirlpool that created the strange scene in the Celestial Emperor Mountain. Jiang Xiu picked up a stone and gently threw it down. The stone fell and passed through the clouds of smoke. However, when it came into contact with the huge whirlpool below, it suddenly disappeared. Even with Jiang Xiu's amazing eyesight, he couldn't tell whether the stone had disappeared or been suppressed into nothingness. This is the tomb of the Celestial Emperor? He remembered that there were many people standing on the cliff, and they were all familiar faces. Behind him were the Ji Daozong, Tang Tian Li Juyang, and not far away was the Taihua sect master Jiang Shitua and his old friend Yan Longyue. He also saw the emaciated corpse god Daoist, and the world's most beautiful Hua Luiying. They seemed to be discussing something. Although Jiang Xiu couldn't remember, he could guess that they must be discussing the tomb of the Celestial Emperor. He saw a dark shadow shoot out from the whirlpool below. Jiang Xiu's eyes widened. It was a stone that shot out from the whirlpool. He caught it in his hand. It was the stone that he had just thrown down. The size of the stone was the same, but the stone had changed. As for what exactly had changed, Jiang Xiu couldn't figure it out. It's time. Suddenly his heart moved. The stone in his hand had been given a long time. It felt like hundreds or thousands of years had passed. The degree of carbonization was completely different. He was thinking that if he had thrown down a living thing, it would have aged instantly. Would it have died, or come out as a demon? What if it had been a human? At that time, this group of people must have been thinking about this question. Who would be willing to go down? However, according to normal logic, such a fast time was probably not a living thing. Even a celestial king might not be able to withstand it. The lifespan of a celestial king wasn't eternal. Every one of them had a limit. Moreover, time passed so fast that the changes in their bodily functions couldn't keep up at all. Did anyone go down at that time? Jiang Xiu tried hard to recall. They would definitely find a living thing to try. Jiang Xiu thought in his mind. Everyone's eyes fell on Cheng Lingran. Jiang Xiu didn't understand why, but he could feel that Cheng Lingran was very scared at that time and hid behind him. At that time, Cheng Lingran was the most worthless. It wouldn't be a pity if she died. On the other hand, they were all celestial kings. They were very honorable. Of course, Jiang Xiu couldn't accept it. Cheng Lingran was even more important than his life at that time. And there were Jiang Shitua and the others present. They all had old grudges with Jiang Xiu. They definitely wouldn't give up such a good opportunity to attack Jiang Xiu. Unfortunately, these memories were fragmented memories. They stopped here. Jiang Xiu thought for a moment. Then he took out a seed from his clothes. It was the seed he plucked from the enchanted moon lotus. He threw it down. The seed landed on the mountain and suddenly disappeared. He stood at the side and waited. According to the previous pattern, this seed would definitely return. He just didn't know if it would become a dry and moldy seed, or, it's here. Soon there was movement below. He saw a rippling whirlpool. Then he saw a hazy light shining through. A blooming enchanted moon lotus flew up. It's open? Jiang Xiu opened his hand and let the enchanted moon lotus land in his palm. It was blooming vigorously and full of vitality. How can this be? Jiang Xiu was very surprised. However, Supreme Vermilion Bird and her disciple were too far away. They didn't understand what was going on. He didn't use the enchanted moon lotus? Jiang Xiu couldn't understand this result. He checked the enchanted moon lotus. It was the same as the one before. He sank into deep thought. What would happen if that person jumped down? Originally, Jiang Xiu wanted to jump down and try. But at the next moment he was so shocked that he broke out in cold sweat. The enchanted moon lotus in his hand withered at a speed visible to the naked eye. The flower emitting a hazy light rapidly lost its vitality. In the end, it turned into a black withered leaf. In the end it was carbonized and was blown away by the wind. It was really dangerous. If Jiang Xiu had jumped down, the result was very likely to be a corpse. Then who went down at that time? Jiang Xiu suddenly felt a sharp pain in his head. He started to have a nosebleed. However, his eyes were wide open. He saw that he was surrounded by several immortal kings. At that time his subordinates Ji Daozong, Tang Tian Li Juyang and his friends Shui Wuyao, Yin Longyue, corpse god Taoist, Hua Luiying, and the others were watching from the side. They didn't have the slightest intention to help. Although Jiang Xiu was strong, he was in an undefeatable position at most when facing the siege of 5 or 6 immortal kings. Cheng Lingran looked at this scene with tears in her eyes. Jiang Xiu was screaming and shouting, but his friends were all indifferent. Their clothes fluttered, and they were full of grief and reluctance. Jiang Xiu was even more devastated and shouted. Cheng Lingran jumped down. Those who were besieging Jiang Xiu heard it. Jiang Shitua was smiling proudly, and some of his subordinates were also present. Jiang Xiu rushed to the edge of the cliff, and saw Cheng Lingran disappear into the smoke in clouds. In the next moment, the scene flashed in his mind. Cheng Lingran came back alive from below. Jiang Xiu was wild with joy, and the surrounding immortal kings all showed a thoughtful expression. Only Cheng Lingran was very nervous. She was roaring at Jiang Xiu. Looking at her lips, it seemed like she was roaring. Kill me quickly. Big brother Jiang, kill me. Jiang Xiu held the sword and questioned her why she wanted to kill him. The memory was broken again. Jiang Xiu understood why he attacked her. So it was like this. However, it also confirmed that Cheng Lingran was definitely a goddess. Since she was a goddess, she would know what the tomb of Celestial Emperor was and what would happen next. Next, she would rapidly lose her life and die. Perhaps only by cutting off her life would she be able to survive. Chapter 635. If Cheng Lingran didn't ask Jiang Xiu to kill him, even Jiang Xiu wouldn't be able to understand it. Only the goddess could understand such profound logic. The Cheng Lingran in front of him should have been descended by the goddess. In Jiang Xiu's original impression, he didn't have a bad impression of the goddess. Although she had taken over Xieting and caused the world to descend on earth, her original intention was to avenge the slaughter of her people. She was so persistent that she would rather be burned to death than let the world descend. Jiang Xiu was even moved by her. But now, it seemed that things were not as simple as they seemed. Once again, a violent pain assaulted him. A portion of Jiang Xiu's memories flashed through his mind. He saw himself quickly understanding her intentions and ruthlessly thrusting his sword into her body. An intense light burst out from the wound, and under her heavy injuries, her life was rapidly draining away. Brother Jiang, kill me. Jiang Xiu's eyes turned cold. Jiang Luoxia's appearance at that time was very different from now, but his expression and eyes were exactly the same. They were filled with indifference, even a little bit like linen. Rip! The long sword was pulled out. Blood gushed out. Cheng Lingran fell into a pool of blood. Brother Jiang, throw me down when I die. From the way she addressed him, she should be someone who looked exactly like Cheng Lingran. The real Cheng Lingran wouldn't call him Brother Jiang, she would call him Minor Repairs. He was more or less sure that only the goddess liked to call him Brother Jiang. She fell into the pool of blood. She was motionless, as if she was dead. She is really dead. Jiang Xiu didn't care about their gazes. He remembered that she told him to throw her down again before she died. He immediately picked her up and went to the edge of the cliff. The wind was whistling outside. The strange whirlpool of the tomb of the Celestial Emperor could be vaguely seen among the drifting clouds. Jiang Xiu took a look at the woman in his arms and threw her down. Her body fell down with a flapping sound. What do you mean by throwing him down? Some people were discussing this matter. I don't know. What happened next stunned everyone, including Jiang Xiu. They saw her, who was already dead, fly up from the ground. Her face was sacred and her eyes were shining. She landed on the cliff and stood there, alive. Brother Jiang, whoosh! Even though everyone present was an immortal king, they were all dumbfounded and in an uproar. The memory fragment was broken again. Jiang Xiu woke up from his memories. His nose was still full of blood, but his body's symptoms were lighter than before. The life force of the ancient great god's blood essence had taken on a large portion of the backlash from Tianji. She survived. He couldn't believe it. She was already dead, but the tomb of Sky Emperor brought her back to life. Could this be the secret of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain? The opportunity to become a martial emperor? If the dead could come back to life, this life force was too strong. Theoretically speaking, if one could use this power for their own use, they would have an immortal body. Of course, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that this level of power was at the martial emperor realm. Jiang Xiu's eyes became fanatical. He came to the edge of the cliff again, and stared at the tomb of Sky Emperor. His mind was filled with thoughts. Now that he could think of this, of course, Jiang Xiu could also think of it, including the many immortal kings present. His head started to hurt once again. Jiang Xiu stood at the edge of the cliff and prepared to go down, but he was hesitant. After all, this matter was very risky. Behind him, Ji Daozong said, "Sect Master, don't worry. We will do our best to protect you." Behind Ji Daozong, Li Jiuyang, Tang Tian, and the others also showed expressions of facing death. Besides these three subordinates, there were a few old friends present. Shui Wuyao, Yan Longyue, Hua Luiying, Corpse God Daoist, and others. These were all people he could trust. Tai Hua Sex Jiang Shitua opened his mouth and said, "Descend the 9 mysteries to cleanse the heavens, 1,000 years of work. You Jiang Shitua will do what you say. Since everyone has a share in the answer, then everyone will have a share." Ji Daozong said, "My sect master's words are the law of gold. All right, then I'll have to trouble you all." Jiang Xiu glanced at Shui Wuyao. The latter nodded heavily at Jiang Xiu. He even suspected whether this man liked him. However, out of all the people present, he trusted the most. In a moment, he entrusted the task of cutting off Jiang Xiu's life force to her. "Don't worry," Shui Wuyao said. "I won't let you down." Jiang Shitua and the others spoke solemnly, but Jiang Xiu still had some reservations. He was truly arrogant, but he couldn't win against people who were truly despicable. However, he was born with a tendency to take risks, so he still resolutely jumped down. The result was, of course, that he quickly flew up from below. He felt his life force rapidly slipping away. At this moment, Jiang Xiu was extremely nervous. He shouted at Shui Wuyao, "Kill me quick." Everyone at the side was very concerned. Jiang Shitua didn't have any intention of stopping him. He stretched out his neck. "All right, watch my sword." The sword flashed and Jiang Xiu fell into a pool of blood. This sword was clean and precise. Shui Wuyao's temperament was neutral and gentle, but his attacks were extremely strong. He could even do it. He only left a bit of blood on Jiang Xiu's chest, where his heart was, without leaving any external injuries. He was very satisfied with his own sword. "Throw him down." When he said this, Shui Wuyao was a little nervous. Perhaps when Jiang Xiu came up again, he would be an immortal emperor. What kind of existence would that be? He would be able to command the immortal martial realm and move unhindered in the universe. However, no one paid attention to Shui Wuyao's words. His heart thumped. "Did you hear that? Throw your sect master down." Everyone present seemed to have become deaf and mute. What do you mean?" Shui Wuyao felt that something was wrong. These people were definitely not deaf or mute. He noticed that Ji Daozong, Tang Tian, Li Jiuyang and the others were rebellious. He also noticed the coldness of Yan Longyue, Hua Luiying, and the corpse god Taoist. "If you don't throw him, I will." Just as Shui Wuyao was about to throw Jiang Xiu's corpse down the tomb of Heavenly Emperor, he was stopped by Ji Daozong. "What are you doing?" "Of course, I'm throwing Jiang Luoxia down," the person beside him said in a strange tone. "You killed our sect master, and now you want to destroy the corpse." Shui Wuyao's expression changed. "Do you want to rebel?" Yan Longyue interrupted and said, "Shui Wuyao, you publicly killed the Sky Motion sect's sect leader. As your subordinates, how could they allow you to desecrate their sect leader's corpse? If it were me, I would also swear to death that I would not comply." Shui Wuyao could no longer remain calm. Even the corpse god Taoist and the flower shadow sect's eyes were abnormally cold. "All of you get out of my way. Otherwise, don't blame my sword for being merciless." Jiang Shitua sneered. "Shui Wuyao, can you deal with so many immortal kings with just one sword? Let me give you a word of advice. Don't throw your life away for nothing." The crowd dispersed, trapping the mist within. Shui Wuyao's eyes flashed with rage. "A group of despicable people who go back on their words. Even if I die, I will give Jiang Gu an explanation." Boom. Jiang Xiu's mind turned into a white light. His memories shattered. Jiang Xiu woke up from his memories. His entire body trembled. He finally understood. He roared in anger. Endless sullenness. Endless anger. A group of treacherous, despicable people. "I will definitely get my revenge. I definitely will." His eyes were red and his face was covered in blood. His memories were intermittent. He saw Shui Wuyao being surrounded by so many immortal kings. He was covered in wounds and struggling bitterly. However, it was difficult for two fists to fight against four. He was like a beast in a cage. He struggled helplessly, exhausting his last bit of magic power. In the end, he collapsed and went crazy. Looking at Jiang Xiu's corpse, he collapsed and went crazy. "Jiang Gu." He fell to the ground and reached out to Jiang Xiu with difficulty. Gradually, everything became blurry. "Shui Wuyao, Jiang Xiu understood Shui Wuyao's feelings. He understood his collapse. He was the one who killed Jiang Xiu. In the end, he was helpless and could only watch as Jiang Xiu died. If it was anyone else, they would have collapsed. If he was not crazy, he would have pulled out his sword and cut his own throat. At this moment, Jiang Xiuwei felt heartache for this brother of his. He heard from the head procuress that Shui Wuyao was still mad. When he was dragged to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain, he would rather die than come up. He had left behind a painful experience here. Chapter 636. Then what was the result? This group of despicable people changed their minds and made Shui Wuyao the murderer of his brother, completely driving him crazy. What happened to them after that? Unfortunately, Jiang Xiu was already dead at that time. Even if he recovered his memory, he didn't know what happened next. Judging from the result, the goddess should be dead. If she didn't die, she shouldn't be able to go back, so she wouldn't have come to Earth later. And among the remaining people, no one became an immortal emperor. Not Ji Daozong, not Jiang Shitua, not Yan Longyue. What was the purpose of the goddess descending on people like Cheng Lingran? She was the one who revealed the secret of the Tomb of Universe. In other words, the tragedy that happened to Jiang Xiu was caused by her. If it wasn't for her demonstration, Jiang Xiu wouldn't have jumped, and he wouldn't have died. At that time, when Cheng Lingran was forced to jump off the cliff, it seemed that she had no choice. She didn't want Jiang Xiu to fall into the mire. But in the end, it was more like she told everyone present the secret of the Tomb of Sky Emperor. Everything was a conspiracy, a trap. She didn't tell Jiang Xiu that he killed her. She didn't use the Tomb of Sky Emperor to come back to life in front of everyone. Who would know that there was such a secret in the Tomb of Sky Emperor? Jiang Xiu knew that this conspiracy was directed at him, because in the end, he was the one who died. If this was the purpose of the goddess, then she had achieved it. But a more inexplicable question appeared in Jiang Xiu's mind. Why did Cheng Lingsu use the great art of destiny and use the heaven's design to hide this? What did she want to hide? Jiang Xiu stood at the edge of the cliff, standing at the place where he once suffered misfortune. He looked at the Tomb of Sky Emperor under the cliff, and at the huge strange whirlpool. No. He forgot one thing. When he jumped off the Tomb of Sky Emperor, he didn't have any memory of what was under the Tomb of Sky Emperor. Why was there such a strange phenomenon, and why did he fall into someone's trap? Jiang Xiu tried hard to recall, but for a long time, he couldn't remember anything. His head was in unbearable pain. The concealing power of the heavenly secrets here was extraordinarily strong. Could it be that Cheng Lingsu wanted to hide the secret of the Tomb of Heavenly Emperor? There was no answer to this question at the moment. Jiang Xiu looked at the Tomb of Heavenly Emperor and pondered. If he wanted to know the secret, he could just jump down one more time. However, if he jumped down, he might lose his life. He still wanted to keep his life, so that those despicable people would pay him back with interest. Master, why did he leave? Jiang Xiu returned to the airboat and steered it back to where he came from. Strange. Supreme Sparrow was confused. What he didn't know was that Jiang Xiu had found what he wanted to know. Where is he going? Back to the sect? He had been out for a while now and had visited all the places he should visit. It was time for him to go back. Master, is he Jiang Luoxia? After following him for a long time, it was quite difficult. However, Supreme Sparrow did not seem to find any concrete evidence that he was Jiang Luoxia. Supreme Sparrow said, "Yes, he is Jiang Luoxia. Although there is no concrete evidence, I am sure that it is him. Going to the brothel and coming here, only Jiang Luoxia would do this if he wanted to pursue the past." The disciple said, "But Master, these are still guesses. There is no way to prove it." Yes, he had spent so much effort to follow them all the way, because he wanted to find solid evidence. Perhaps, his next step would be to find that crazy Shui Wuyao. Follow him. If he was Jiang Luoxia and did not find what he wanted at the Heavenly Emperor Mountain, he would not give up on someone who knew about it. At the same time, he was also his former good friend. Not to mention, he had gone crazy. As an old friend, most likely he would not be able to hold himself back and go to see him when he went crazy. However, Jiang Xiu did not go. Jiang Xiu knew clearly why Shui Wuyao had gone crazy. However, Jiang Xiu could not go to see him. He was Jiang Xiu and he did not know Shui Wuyao. Going to the brothel could be a coincidence. However, if he went to see his old friend, wouldn't he be telling everyone that he was Jiang Luoxia? Jiang Xiu returned to the sect. When he saw Jiang Xiu enter the Green State, Supreme Sparrow knew that Jiang Xiu was returning to the sect. He did not follow him and returned to the sect before Jiang Xiu using the flying boat. After Jiang Xiu had returned, his home had become empty again. Zhao Rong was no longer there. His face still remained indifferent. Since a long time ago, he had gotten used to this kind of loneliness. Elite warriors had to endure loneliness. However, he would not feel bored. After returning to his home and settling down, he began to cultivate. He did not have the time to develop the blood essence in his body, because he was in a hurry. Moreover, he had to recuperate from the serious injuries caused by resisting the heavenly secrets many times. First, he took some medicinal pills to recover his body. In his spirit essence, his life-bound divine tool was still shattered. However, these stones had mutated and were emitting a strange power. As long as he willed it, he could reform his life-bound divine tool. He had refined the snake blood into his life-bound divine tool, and made it a part of his life-bound divine tool. From then on, he had overcome the weakness of being restrained by the snake blood. The worst thing was that he was already a great heavenly deity. However, because of the shattering of his life-bound divine tool and the restoration of his life-bound divine tool, although the third divine Tao pattern had already taken shape, his innate talent had not been revealed. It was as if it was isolated by some kind of strange power, or some kind of membrane. Jiang Xiu had never encountered such a situation before. He could not find any reason for it. However, after absorbing the blood essence, the power in the blood essence seemed to have triggered the awakening of the third Protoss innate talent in his bloodline. This discovery made Jiang Xiu extremely happy. Judging from his observation, this process would not take too long. He only needed to absorb a little bit of the blood essence to trigger a qualitative change. It would awaken the third innate talent that had already been awakened but was now dormant. He estimated that it would take about half a month. Junior Marshal Brother Jiang, the elders invite you in. This afternoon, the elders who had gone to the new sect had returned. They should have gone to Supreme Sparrow's place first. Then they sent someone to find Jiang Xiu. The elders had sent an order. As a disciple, he naturally had no reason to not go. Disciple Jiang Xiu greets the two elders. Supreme Sparrow was not present. Only the Enforcement Elder and Q-Sword Elder were present. Jiang Xiu, I heard that you went on a long journey. Jiang Xiu nodded and said, yes. Q-Sword Elder said, did you go to Tsang State? Jiang Xiu also guessed that Supreme Sparrow would send a message. There was no need to hide it. Yes, I went to Tsang State and Heavenly Emperor Mountain. I was just curious about what they said. I only went for a stroll, and did not find anything. Humph humph, Q-Sword Elder said. Did you go to the sect master's ancestral hall? He did not dare to take the blame. Only the sect master and special disciples of the sect could enter there. Ordinary disciples were forbidden. If they entered rashly, they would be charged with blasphemy. I did not. That is a forbidden area. The disciplinary elder said, we specially checked the blood left behind by the previous sovereign, Jiang Luo. The Supreme Sparrow tested it with some medicine, and there were some residual images on it. It seemed that someone had tampered with it. If I'm not mistaken, the blood inside should have been changed. Is that so? Q-Sword Elder said, you still won't admit it. Jiang Xiu said, admit what? Humph. The two grabbed Jiang Xiu and questioned him. However, Jiang Xiu clenched his teeth and refused to admit it. When he came out, it was already afternoon. He walked back along the chain. Currently, his cultivation was crippled. He could only walk on the giant chain between the peaks. Junior Brother Jiang. Suddenly, a pleasant voice called out. Jiang Xiu looked up and saw several flying boats flying over. Qin Qing was greeting him. Senior Sister Qin. Junior Brother, where are you going? Returning to the peak. Qin Qing said, Green Spirit Mountain has opened the Green Spirit list. We are going there. Are you interested in going with us? Looking at each and every one of them full of hope and burning eyes, Jiang Xiu saw himself in the past. He shook his head. His youth had already passed. Senior Sister Qin, why did you ask a trash to go with you? If you go there, wouldn't you lose face for our Tianqing school? Jiang Xiu's eyes coldly swept over. Jiang Xiu had some impression of this person. He seemed to be a disciple of the Jidao sect. Only someone of his lineage could speak so bluntly. Okay, I'm bored in the sect. Then I'll go with Senior Sister. Qin Qing was stunned. Didn't he just say that he didn't want to go? Then come up. Chapter 637. After Jiang Xiu boarded the airship, he glanced at that person indifferently. Sure enough, he was a disciple of the Jidao sect. When had he ever provoked him? He actually called him trash. Qin Qing saw that he was empty-handed. Although sect disciples were forbidden from bringing followers when they went out on missions, empty-handed was too little. You're going just like that? Jiang Xiu nodded slightly. Junior brother is really free and easy. That disciple snorted coldly, seemingly disdainful of Jiang Xiu. As a disciple of the sect master, of course he was superior to others. Sometimes, some peak masters and even elders would be polite to them and look at them in a different light. Qin Qing said, Senior brother Yao, Jiang Xiu's talent could be considered outstanding before. Although he's injured now and in a difficult situation, he deserves our respect. Qin Qing had a good impression of Jiang Xiu. He had helped her out of a predicament before, so of course she didn't want Jiang Xiu to be humiliated. So she spoke up for him. Humph. The disciple sneered at Jiang Xiu, but didn't say anything else. His meaning was obvious. I'm giving face to Qin Qing. In my eyes, you're not even an onion. Ignore him. After he left, Qin Qing looked at Jiang Xiu with a smile and said, Junior brother Jiang, you're an anomaly in the sect. I haven't seen you for many years, but today I caught you alive. Jiang Xiu smiled. Why does it sound like I'm scolding someone? Qin Qing's smile deepened. You're the one who made the connection. During the New Year, Qin Qing came to Jiang Xiu's place to pay New Year's greetings and chat. This sect disciple was a typical Tianqing school disciple with a firm Dao heart. Jiang Xiu said, Senior Sister Qin, you're going to Qingling Mountain this time. It seems you're well prepared. Are you planning to make a name for yourself in the immortal martial arts world? Qin Qing sighed. It's difficult. I know my own situation. My strength is limited, and my talent can't be compared to those geniuses. I can only join in the fun and show my face. She looked at Jiang Xiu and said, You on the other hand, it's a pity. If you weren't injured, you would definitely amaze the world. Is there really no other way? She truly felt sorry for Jiang Xiu. The successor battle was still vivid in her mind, and Jiang Xiu could even survive a soul attack. She did not expect that he would be destroyed in the hands of the Samsara Palace. Jiang Xiu smiled and looked into the distance. By the way, I left the sect a while ago. How's the matter of moving the sect? He decided to follow them to Green Spirit Mountain, and didn't want to see those elders again. If he stayed in the sect, they might find some evidence to point at him. About that, Qin Qing said, I'm not sure about the specifics. It's all up to the higher-ups. But since the sect leader has made the decision, it should be soon. Even if we're going to move, we'll have to wait until the other side is finished before we move over. Several days later, they arrived at Green Spirit Mountain. This mountain range was incomparably noisy. In the past, there weren't many people who came here, but there were often people who came because of its reputation. However, the real bustle was when the Green Spirit leaderboard was released. The older generation generally did not come. Occasionally, there would be a few elders who would lead the group, but they were usually from the younger generation, rising stars. There were also many street stalls here. They didn't do business, but rather traded goods. Tianqing School was a large sect, and the disciples under it could be considered the second generation of the immortal martial continent. They were very wealthy and did not need to rack their brains for resources. However, some small sects and loose cultivators would often go to great lengths for a single material. Jiang Xiu had also experienced this in the past. At that time he was in the outer sect and had endured it. Of course, the things they were exchanging now could no longer enter Jiang Xiu's eyes. 300-year-old spirit mushrooms. I have a deal. Earth spirit turtle. I have a third-grade pill. All kinds of voices were incessant. Jiang Xiu seemed to see the scene when his master had brought him and his fellow disciples here. At that time, Jiang Xiu was secretly annoyed. If he had known about this place earlier, he wouldn't have had to work so hard for a few months in Green Province for the rootless grass. Junior brother Jiang, your body isn't good right now. Follow the group. The situation here is a bit chaotic. Qin Qing reminded him. Jiang Xiu naturally knew that this was a place of turmoil. Dragons and snakes mixed together, and people were often killed. Sometimes, the reason might be because someone's arrogant gaze made others unhappy. Especially this master Jiang Xiu. His gaze was innately arrogant, and he was used to looking down on the world. Yao Zireo said, it's really troublesome for a trash to follow us out. It's better to bring a servant girl. A servant girl knows how to serve people. Jiang Xiu coldly laughed. Let's stay here first. The taverns here required money, and it wasn't free. No matter what, Jiang Xiu was still a true disciple. With Qin Qing's help he was given a single room, but his seat was a bit off. Just as Jiang Xiu planned to return to his room, a group of people passed by. Jiang Xiu sharply caught sight of a familiar face. Turning his head to look, it was a beautiful face. Suing. At that time, Jiang Xiu was forced to use the fire evasion heavenly technique, but he couldn't control himself and crashed into the mountain. At that time, he encountered two equally matched beauties who were both heavily injured. Jiang Xiu even took liberties with them. It's her. She also came to fight for the Azure Spirit List. The Azure Spirit List was the best opportunity for young people to become famous. As long as one had a certain amount of strength, they would come here to show their face. If they could amaze the world with a single brilliant feat and become famous on the Azure Spirit List, then their sect would be in the limelight, and it would be easier for them to accept talented disciples. Suing didn't see Jiang Xiu, and Jiang Xiu didn't greet her either. He just passed by like that. Returning to his room, he sat cross-legged and cultivated. The absorption of essence blood was very slow, and it could only be accelerated when he cultivated. After a few days, the blood in his body faintly showed signs of breaking through the barrier, but it still lacked some strength. If he encountered this kind of cultivation situation, he would be able to successfully break through in one fell swoop by concocting the corresponding elixir, but Jiang Xiu didn't know what kind of elixir he needed to break through. But the essence blood suddenly lit up with 4 colors of blood. Jiang Xiu's entire body turned red, and the triggering factors in his blood immediately exploded like a nuclear weapon. His whole body shook. The blood violently rushed to his brain, and it was as if a hole had been opened in his brain. At this moment, his heart suddenly beat. He used to hope that such a situation would happen, but now he was scared half to death. The impact to the brain was very likely related to the soul. If he could awaken a talent related to the soul, then it would be really. But unfortunately, Jiang Xiu's soul was gone. The consequences of this were hard to predict. He couldn't rule out the possibility of dying on the spot. In the end, the awakened power of the Protoss didn't target the soul as Jiang Xiu had thought. Instead, it transformed his entire body, and everything was overturned and rebuilt. His body became incomparably complex. Jiang Xiu couldn't describe his body. He checked his divine vein pattern, and something that he didn't have before awakened. It was the effect of the third divine vein. This is mind-splitting technique? In the past, Jiang Xiu could multitask, but it was still limited to one body, and one body couldn't carry 2 different sets of spells. However, his body had become incomparably complex, and it had this ability. Was this the effect of the third divine vein? Appear. As he chanted, the divine vein pattern that extended from his arm to his chest lit up. Then his body became pitch black, and any spell could be used inside. In the past, it was a single-core spell, but now it could be considered a multi-core spell. It's really like this. Jiang Xiu was extremely shocked. This was really too heaven-defying. In other words, Jiang Xiu could use multiple spells at the same time. What kind of freak was this? One had to know that even celestial kings could only use one spell, and the only thing they could do was to infinitely increase the speed of their spell casting. However, Jiang Xiu could use them at the same time. If this was the case, a siege would be ineffective against Jiang Xiu. He could deal with many people's attacks at the same time. The premise was that his magic power was enough to support it. He had read in a book that many Protoss would have 3 forms. The second form was the form of armor. This so-called armor was the armor of the hidden armor, and it referred to an extremely small amount of power. This description was similar to the power attribute of celestial kings. If Jiang Xiu entered the second form, then not only would he be able to control his body at will, but he would also definitely reach the level of a divine king. With this thought, Jiang Xiu was shocked. Just the evolution of his body could reach the level of a divine king. His bloodline was really too heaven-defying. Chapter 638. After the appearance of Jiang Luoxia, the Tianqing school didn't have any particularly outstanding talents. In fact, there were many amazing people in his generation, such as Ji Daozong and Li Jiuyang. They were all first-class geniuses. However, the people of the same generation as Jiang Luoxia were tragic. Their talents were overshadowed. Even today, the Tianqing school was thought to have no outstanding genius disciples. It was really because Jiang Luoxia's light was too dazzling. He was the #1 genius in the immortal martial arts in the past 3,000 years. Just the title alone overshadowed everyone. Everything had a decline after reaching its peak. In everyone's eyes, the Tianqing school was now walking down the path of exhaustion without a bottom line. In addition, the marriage with the Taihua sect made the Tianqing school's prestige fall a lot. All the small sects dared to say in private that the Tianqing school was on the verge of collapse and was supported by a group of old guys. Therefore, the disciples of the Tianqing school held their breath and wanted to prove themselves. Jiang Xiu still vaguely remembered the situation in the past. At that time, before he fought for the Azure Spirit list, he was already a little famous in Qingzhou. Everyone had already pushed him very high. And the famous geniuses of all the major provinces were all his imaginary enemies. When he came to Qingling Mountain, he attracted a lot of attention, and his attitude was very high. His opponents were also prominent, and there was a feeling that a big battle was about to happen. But now, Jiang Xiu was calm and didn't feel anything. More than 3,000 years ago, when he first started cultivating, he was able to suppress all the heroes in the era of blooming flowers. Not to mention that he was starting spiritual cultivation again. His speed was simply flying. On the list of cultivation speed since ancient times, not to mention his own record, even the ancient sages were completely defeated by him. Once he revealed the cultivation of the great divine realm, it would definitely shock the immortal martial arts again. It swept across like a fierce wind. Junior brother Jiang. The next day, Qin came to find him. Since you're here, don't stay at home all day. Go out and walk around to increase your knowledge. Watching others fight would also be of great help to their cultivation. Yes. Jiang Xiu stood up from behind the long table, still holding the Heaven's Ask Talisman amulet in his hand. His third Divine Dao Talisman talent allowed him to cast multiple spells at the same time, but all he knew were immortal spells. As for divine spells, they were pitifully few. He vaguely guessed that immortal spells could be translated into divine spells through the Heaven's Ask Talisman amulet, so he was diligently studying it. Without Zhao Rong teaching him from the side, it would be more difficult for him to learn by himself. Junior brother, are you interested in runes? It's all right. Along with him were a few other senior and junior brothers. Where to? Qin said. Let's go to the tavern. That's where the flow of news is the smoothest. You'll be able to hear a lot of news there. You can also sit down and drink leisurely. I heard that the Consonance Pavilion has recently released the top 10 beauties of the new generation. Junior brother Jiang, are you interested? Compared to the top 10 geniuses, the top 10 beauties were even more interesting. What did the rough men have to say? Once the beauty rankings were brought up, both men and women became excited. Jiang Xiu smiled faintly, but his eyes were somewhat cold. Of course, geniuses also needed beauties to accompany them. The situation back then was also like this. And in their generation, the leader of the top 10 beauties was Hua Luiying. Because she was listed as the #1 beauty in the Consonance Pavilion, she had the reputation of being the best in the world, and the best in the world. Even if you say I know her, I've never seen her. Qing smiled and said, then today is a good opportunity. When they arrived at the tavern, there were quite a few people inside. They were all disciples of various sects, each of them spitting saliva everywhere. Some of them were not here to compete for the Azure Spirit rankings, but to gossip and join in the fun. The top 10 beauties, junior brother Jiang isn't completely unaware of them. Jiang Xiu took the wine cup that the waiter brought over and drank, saying, there's still someone I know? He was rather curious. Do you remember last year's True Disciples battle? Madam wanted to betroth the female disciple of the Tai Hua sect to you? Jiang Xiu's eyes turned cold. Sect Master Zhang's descendant Jiang Xiaoyao. She's ranked 7th. At the mention of this girl, the faces of the other Tianqing school disciples turned cold. Jiang Xiu's eyes flashed with a trace of killing intent. This killing intent was not only directed at Jiang Xiaoyao, but also at Jiang Shitua. Tai Hua sect, I'll definitely make you all pay back. That which can also be on the rankings. A disciple on the side was very indignant. At that time, Jiang Xiaorao had forced the death of a guardian disciple, and had already formed a death grudge with the entire Tianqing school. If Jiang Shi had not died, it would have been fine. But now that the two sects had turned against each other, the disciples hated that they could not kill Jiang Xiaoyao to vent their anger. Hua. There was a sudden uproar in the tavern as a woman in white walked into the sect. Jiang Xiu heard the sound and looked over in shock. It was actually someone he knew. The woman's temperament was elegant and refined. Her skin was snow white, and her eyes were like dots of paint. She was very attractive. Bai Qianqian, the one who had fought fiercely with Su Ying and was injured and fell deep into the mountains. Jiang Xiu had saved her. Since Su Ying is here, there's no reason for her not to come. The horny students in the tavern were not calm. It's Bai Qianqian. She's so beautiful. No wonder she's ranked 5th on the rankings. She's so beautiful. TSK. Look at her smooth skin. Her posture and figure were indeed outstanding. There was no part of her that did not exude beauty. Bai Qianqian, a female disciple of Thousand Snow Stream of Wind Province. Qing was actually also very beautiful. However, in order to be on the rankings, one had to have top-notch strength and background in addition to top-notch looks. Only then could one be considered a beauty. Su Ying did not see Jiang Xiu at all yesterday. However, after Bai Qianqian came in and bought a bottle of wine, she turned around and saw a familiar face. She was stunned for a moment. Jiang Xiu raised his glass and drank without leaving a trace. Bai Qianqian's eyes showed confusion. His raised glass blocked his cheeks, only revealing his eyes. She could not be sure. She took 2 steps outside and stopped. Perhaps she was trying to make sure that it was Jiang Xiu. She looked back again. She happened to meet Jiang Xiu's eyes. Bai Qianqian's expression changed involuntarily. She asked the girls at the door, "Who are those people?" "I think they're from Tianqing school." Bai Qianqian was very surprised. He's a disciple of Tianqing school? After Jiang Xiu escaped that day, they did not even know where Jiang Xiu came from. Although she was forced by Jiang Xiu to become his so-called maid, it was a fact that Jiang Xiu saved her life. She more or less had special feelings for him in her heart, especially after being teased by him shamelessly. Jiang Xiu looked at her indifferently and did not go over to greet her. Bai Qianqian saw that there were too many people around, and it was not convenient for her to go over. Jiang Xiu asked, "What's Su Ying's ranking?" Su Ying and she were mortal enemies. They would not rest until one of them was dead. As long as the other was unlucky, she would not even care if she died. Su Ying is 6th, 1 place lower than Bai Qianqian. The reason is that Su Ying's sect has a bad reputation in the Wind Province, which is what the people of the Wind Province call evil. So she's 1 place lower. Jiang Xiu smiled. Su Ying must be so angry that her lungs were about to explode. That was indeed the case. After Suing heard the Lingxi Pavilion's ranking and realized that she was one place lower than Bai Qianqian, she was furious. She wanted to withdraw from the ranking no matter what. But the Lingxi Pavilion's announcement was soon known to the world. How could she withdraw? Ever since this incident, Suing had been in a bad mood. She ate all kinds of things and even gritted her teeth and said that she must kill Bai Qianqian. Only by killing Bai Qianqian could she wash away this shame. Haha. Then who is in first place? Qin Qing said. The first place is Hua Luiying's disciple, Hua Lianxiang. Everyone calls her Princess Lianxiang. This girl was born in the royal family. Her talent is peerless. She has a head of white and blue hair, and her skin is as white as jade. She is even better than her master in the past. Hua Luiying? Jiang Xiu was too familiar with this person. They had known each other since that year. She betrayed him, Jiang Luoxia, at the tomb of the celestial emperor. It had been close to 3,000 years. Their relationship was so good that Hua Luiying sent a female disciple to be Jiang Xiu's maid. And that female disciple's beauty and talent were no less than her own. It was just that Jiang Luoxia had rejected her. At that time, he felt that it was not worth it for Hua Luiying. It was such a waste to give away such a good disciple. Even if it was Jiang Luoxia himself, in his opinion, he could have kept her by his side and nurtured her. Now that he thought about it, Hua Luiying might not have given him a female disciple out of the goodness of her heart. She might even be a spy. Jiang Xiu's eyes turned cold. Hua Luiying, you were also involved in the incident back then. You should know the consequences of offending me, Jiang Luoxia. You should have thought of the consequences if you could do it. There are rumors that Princess Lianxiang has the body of godly charm. She is born different from ordinary people. She is naturally seductive. Those who have weak willpower will be deeply mesmerized just by looking at her, unable to extricate themselves. Chapter 639. Indeed, Hua Luiying had always been good at choosing disciples. Jiang Xiu had seen the previous disciple, who was considered top-notch in the eyes of the Tianqing school's school head. Now there was another one. The godly charm physique was a special physique for women. Among all the physiques, although it couldn't compare to Shangguan Jiarong's Taiyu Dao fetus, it was still a famous physique. It was especially suitable for dual cultivation with men. Of course, one's own cultivation speed wouldn't be slow either. This Princess Hidden Scent doesn't only possess beauty and family background. She herself is a peerless genius. This time, she also wants to announce her name on the Azure Spirit roll. Qin Qing was also rather moved when this person was mentioned. It was fine if a woman was beautiful, but she also knew how to use her beauty. The problem was that she was so talented and so hardworking. Of course, the cultivation speed of the godly charm physique definitely won't be slow. The disciple on the side blushed and his eyes flashed. He was probably quite moved and hoped that this beauty had been charmed by him and was not fake. Jiang Xiu said, "Physique is one aspect, but talent doesn't only refer to physique. More importantly, it's perception." On this point, Jiang Luoxia had the most right to speak. Back then, he was once thought to have no talent at all because he was just an ordinary person and didn't have a special physique. However, with his outstanding perception, he slapped everyone in the face. Only his Shizuan's discerning eyes recognized the pearl. Yes, Junior Jiang is right. Perception is also very important. But this princess not only has a physique that defies the natural order, but her perception is also extremely shocking. It's said that when she was 7, she spent 3 days to learn a set of sword techniques. Of course, 7 years old couldn't cultivate any profound sword techniques, but any sword technique that only took 3 days was enough to shock the world. Jiang Xiu's expression didn't change. The fastest he learned was in 1 night, and he only learned 1 sword technique. Moreover, at that time, he faced enormous external pressure and exploded with shocking potential. Of course, the difficulty of the sword technique couldn't be compared. Princess Dark Fragrance? His face showed that he was pondering. Another pitiful worm. Although Jiang Xiu's voice was soft, Qin Qing still heard a little. She asked, "Junior Jiang, what did you say? What wretch?" Jiang Xiu was very strange. When he was strong, he was overbearing and domineering, but when he was crippled, he was still so maverick. He was always incompatible with them. Nothing, Qin Qing said. However, Princess Hidden Fragrance's current situation can't be considered good. She was challenged by a disciple of the Gold Sun sect. That is a physical cultivation sect. Her entire body congealed into gold. And with the addition of forbidden colors, Princess Hidden Fragrance lost half of her strength. Everyone is saying that Princess Dark Fragrance will lose. It wasn't that one couldn't lose on the Azure Spirit leaderboard, but no matter how many battles you won or how great your fame was, once you lost, then it would be difficult for you to be praised. The world wouldn't sing praises for you, because if you lost, then you weren't the most outstanding and strongest. Gold Sun Sect? Jiang Xiu knew about this sect. It wasn't a large sect, but it was a very unique sect. Most of the disciples of the sect were born with divine strength, and then they would embark on the path of cultivation. The so-called diamond body of this sect was based on their tyrannical bodies, and they would be able to surpass the vast majority of opponents of the same level. There were many sword techniques that couldn't even break through their defenses. Divine charm could be considered to be perfectly restrained. It seemed like the other party also intended to use Hidden Fragrance fame to step on her to rise. There were many people on the streets. Jiang Xiu had just walked out of the hotel when someone came over to deliver a letter to Jiang Xiu. He didn't ask, and just gave a small tip before accepting the letter. After opening it, there was a faint fragrance on the letter. Looking at the handwriting, it was very graceful. It was a letter from a girl. Junior brother Jiang, you're very popular, Jiang Xiu said. It's an invitation to a banquet. An old friend invited me to a banquet. He casually put away the letter. It was a letter from Bai Qianqian. Then junior brother should go. Jiang Xiu said goodbye to Qin Qing and left. Watching him leave, a disciple on the side said, Senior sister Qin, he's alone. Is there no problem? If something happens, we won't be able to explain it. Qin Qing understood what he meant. Jiang Xiu didn't have any cultivation now. Walking in the crowd, he was like a little sheep shuttling through a pack of wolves. As long as a wolf was hungry, it could eat him in one bite. Jiang Xiu didn't encounter anything along the way. Soon he arrived at the appointed place. There was a servant guarding the door of the courtyard. Jiang Xiu went up and handed the letter over. Bai Qianqian invited me, the servant said. So it's Upper Immortal. Fairy Bai has already ordered you to come with me. Bai Qianqian bought wine. She was supposed to be a guest at a good friend's place. However, she didn't want to say hello to Jiang Xiu in person, so she invited him here. Following the servant through several corridors in the courtyard, they came to a pavilion. The surroundings were very quiet, and the dense trees were very secluded. It was very comfortable. Hey! Hearing the voice, Jiang Xiu turned around and saw Bai Qianqian walking over with a sweet smile. At that time, although Jiang Xiu was chased by the people of Samsara Palace, it was difficult for her to associate Jiang Xiu with the scoundrel who saved her. Jiang Xiu looked at her indifferently. It seemed that his injury had already healed. I didn't expect you to be a disciple of Tianqing School. You don't look like one. In my impression, no disciple of Tianqing School is so scoundrelly. Her eyes were very beautiful and lively. However, there was a liveliness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Jiang Xiu sighed and said, If I had known that you would think of me like this, I would have only saved Suing. How dare you? Bai Qianqian widened her eyes and looked fierce. Jiang Xiu said, Don't forget the condition I had when I saved you. Is this how you talk to your master? Hearing this, Bai Qianqian's face showed a strange expression. This matter was indeed agreed at that time, but at that time, she had no choice but to meet this scoundrel. Now that they had crossed the river, she couldn't tear down the bridge. She called Jiang Xiu over because of this matter. Well, I called you here because I want you to change your condition. Jiang Xiu's expression was disapproving, but it was quite meaningful. Bai Qianqian felt guilty and uncomfortable. I'm asking you a question. You name your condition. I'll agree to any condition. Jiang Xiu said. As a servant, everything you have belongs to your master. You have to agree to any condition I name. You Bai Qianqian's pretty face turned cold. You're a scoundrel. Jiang Xiu said. You can be a scoundrel too. You don't admit that you're my servant, and you didn't sign your name at that time. You can just leave and pretend you don't know me. Of course, Bai Qianqian had thought about it, but she knew she couldn't get past the barrier in her heart. Although the other party had made a very excessive request, he had indeed saved her life. If it weren't for him, she and Suing would have died. There was another reason she couldn't get away with, but Suing was also there, and she wasn't alone. Qianqian, the banquet is about to start. Why are you here? Following this voice, Jiang Xiu saw a young girl walking over from afar. Her long white hair exuded a light blue color, and her skin was as white as snow. Her entire person had an indescribable sense of perfection. As she moved, she was so graceful that it made people's hearts pound. The wind blew on her body, sticking her clothes to her body, outlining the perfect shape of her chest, lower abdomen, and long legs. She was flawless, without a single flaw. Princess Hidden Fragrance? Seeing the girl, this name flashed through Jiang Xiu's mind. The disciples of Flowery Shadow Sect were indeed extraordinary. Ah, so there are guests. Her eyes turned into crescent moons as she smiled meaningfully, as if she had lost her manners and disturbed their good time. However, her appearance was moving. Not only did it not make people feel disgusted, it was like a vixen that could steal people's souls away. No. Bai Qianqian's hands and feet were in a mess, and her pretty face turned red. Liuli, don't talk nonsense. Otherwise, we can't be friends, she warned. Princess Hidden Fragrance's real name was Liuli, and only good friends could call her that. Then who is this person? Bai Qianqian was about to explain, but she didn't know that she had fallen into Liuli's trap. She reached out her slender hand to stop her, and said with a smile, no need to explain. Anyway, I've already seen it. It's hard for me not to think too much. This woman's every frown and smile was extremely charming. She was worthy of being called a charming woman. According to legend, the structure of the charming woman's body was different from that of ordinary people. After all, she had the side of a god. However, if Jiang Xiu could meet her, her fate would definitely be very miserable. We're discussing who will win in the duel between Princess Hidden Fragrance and the disciple of the Gold Sun Sect. Chapter 640. The playful smile on Luli's pretty face gradually faded when she heard this. Her expression became solemn. This matter was currently being followed by a lot of attention, but everyone avoided talking about it in front of her. However, this complete stranger in front of her had openly asked about it. This made her unhappy. However, she didn't show it on her face. She just looked Jiang Xiu up and down and said disapprovingly, "Oh really? Then who do you think will win?" She cleverly avoided Jiang Xiu's question, and showed some disdain at the same time, because she didn't think that anyone with a lower cultivation than her could see anything, and could only make a fuss. Of course, she disdained such people in her heart. This was the demeanor of the strong, and also the mentality of the ordinary strong. It was originally a sarcastic remark, but Jiang Xiu didn't seem to understand it. He said, "Although I didn't see the disciple of the Gold Sun Sect, I think you should lose." Is he a hothead? Bai Qianqian, who was on the side, was so anxious that she glared at him. She had never seen such a person who didn't know how to talk. Of course, he said that Luli would lose to his face. What's more, who do you think you are? What do you know? Luli's beautiful brows immediately frowned, and she was even more disgusted with this person. Don't talk nonsense. Bai Qianqian motioned to Jiang Xiu not to talk nonsense. However, Jiang Xiu said, "Nonsense, I'm not talking nonsense. Since the disciple of the Gold Sun Sect challenged Luli, he must be in the same realm. If someone in the same realm wants to defeat the Gold Sun Sect, the chance of winning is less than 10%. What's more, the other party came prepared. I'm afraid he has already done his homework, so that 10% doesn't exist. Well, he called me Luli when they met for the first time, and he made such a firm judgment that I will lose." Luli's face turned livid. "You are so sure? Aren't you afraid that I will defeat the disciple of the Gold Sun Sect and slap your face?" Jiang Xiu said, "It's absolutely impossible. You will lose." Stop it. Bai Qianqian had had enough. This guy actually quarreled with her friend. He was simply too ridiculous. She had never seen such a person before. What do you know? Lu Li is a first-rate genius. She is someone that even the Consonance Pavilion thinks highly of. She will definitely not lose. She will definitely be able to make it onto the Azure Spirit list. Jiang Xiu said. Don't deceive yourself and others. She definitely won't lose. You can ask Liuli herself if you say such things. Even she doesn't believe it. Jiang Xiu's satirical tone made Lu Li's face turn even uglier. Because of her noble status, outstanding talent, and outstanding beauty, everyone who saw her would flatter her. This was the first time she had been ridiculed in public like this. On the surface, she looked fine, but in reality, her lungs were about to explode. However, she had the demeanor of a noble lady of the liberal faction, so she didn't lose her temper. Jiang Xiu had no intention of letting her go. Look, she can't even say it herself. Damn it. Bai Qianqian was really about to break down. And Lu Li's face was so ugly that it was about to turn blue. Who couldn't say it? In fact, she really couldn't say it. If she said it out loud and had confidence, she wouldn't be afraid of Jiang Xiu's ridicule. That's enough. Bai Qianqian stared at Jiang Xiu angrily. We haven't even fought yet, and you're already shaking Lu Li's confidence. What do you mean? What did Lu Li do to you? Lu Li's face was cold. She wanted to turn around and leave. It was not worth arguing with a nobody. Excuse me. If it weren't for Bai Qianqian, she wouldn't even bother with such a nobody. Seeing that Lu Li was angered by Jiang Xiu and left, Bai Qianqian, who was in the middle, was in a difficult position. Jiang Xiu, however, was calm and composed. He said, since you're going to lose, if I were you, I would stand out and surrender. Anyway, you're a girl. There's nothing embarrassing about surrendering. She exploded. This time, she completely exploded. Lu Li stopped in her tracks and took a deep breath. She felt a surge of anger rushing to the top of her head. If I surrender, I'll lose half the battle. Bai Qianqian touched her forehead. This person was really too much. She had never seen such a person. Not to mention Lu Li, even she had a headache. As expected, Lu Li turned around angrily and glared at Jiang Xiu. Why do you look down on me? Why are you so sure that I'll lose? Let me tell you, I will never surrender. Never. I want to win fair and square. When the time comes, you need to apologize to me. Princess Lu Li, who was graceful and calm, had completely lost her temper. Jiang Xiu sneered. Apologize. I'm afraid it'll be difficult. I'm afraid that someone will cry when she loses. Lu Li said angrily. Go. She even cursed. But after thinking about it, she realized that she had lost her composure. He was just an insignificant person. Was it necessary to lower herself to his level? Then she turned around angrily. But Jiang Xiu's light voice came from afar. I have a way to guarantee a 100% win. 100% win? These words were like a curse to Lu Li. In fact, she really had no confidence. She had imagined countless scenes of fighting with her opponent in her mind, but without exception, she lost all of them. Therefore, although she looked calm on the surface, in fact, her confidence had already collapsed. There was no other way. Whether it was her physique or her swordsmanship, she had been restrained. What chance did she have of winning? Jiang Xiu said 10% was too much. You have a way? After Lu Li stopped, Bai Qianqian was already looking at Jiang Xiu in disbelief. She was waiting for Jiang Xiu, the master, to pretend to be profound and tell them the way. You have a way? Lu Li didn't believe it either. But her heart was already bewitched. When a person was on the verge of despair, if someone gave her hope, no matter how ridiculous or not, she would believe it. Because she hoped that the other party could really help her. Jiang Xiu said, of course. If you want to know, come to me at night. Come to you at night? These words were a bit hooligan, but Jiang Xiu's face was so calm and magnanimous. No matter how Lu Li heard it, she did feel uncomfortable. It seemed like there was some metaphor. But what could a nobody do with her cultivation? You're bragging, right? Bai Qianqian was the first to be unhappy. Jiang Xiu said, it's up to you to believe it or not. If you want to know, come to me at night. After he finished speaking, he ignored her, as leisurely as he had been since ancient times. Lu Li frowned slightly and looked at Jiang Xiao. Finally, her gaze fell on Bai Qianqian. Bai Qianqian gently shook her head. She was very unfamiliar with Jiang Xiao. Her life was saved by him. She couldn't pretend to be familiar with him and make him talk about the so-called way. The banquet is starting. I'll go over first. Qianqian, you should hurry too. A trace of mockery flashed through Jiang Xiao's eyes. Hua Luiying's disciple, and such an outstanding one at that. Hey, are you telling the truth? Do you really have a way to let Lu Li win? Bai Qianqian asked after Lu Li left. Jiang Xiao was a disciple of Tianqing School after all. It was a prestigious school, so his knowledge must be extraordinary. Perhaps he really did have a way. Jiang Xiao said. Of course. What way? Jiang Xiao shook his head and said. Of course I can't tell you the way. If I tell you, it won't be worth anything. TSK, you're pretending. You're bragging. I don't believe you have a way. You're just bluffing. The more Jiang Xiao acted like this, the more Bai Qianqian really wanted to know. Or perhaps, your way can't let him win at all. Jiang Xiao was unfathomable and unmoved. Do you have anything else to say? If not, I'm going back. My seniors are still waiting for me. He looked up at the sky and complained. Ai, why is the sun still so high? It'll be a while before it gets dark. He really couldn't wait. Bai Qianqian cursed this bastard in her heart. Lu Li isn't someone you can trick. Give up. He definitely won't look for you tonight. Jiang Xiao said. Then let's make a bet. If he comes to look for me tonight, you'll continue to be my servant. What if he doesn't go? Jiang Xiao said. Then of course I lose. From now on, I'll be free to fly. I'll give you back your freedom. Bai Qianqian muttered to herself. She felt that with Lu Li's arrogant personality, he definitely wouldn't lower himself to beg an impossible liar. Okay, then it's a deal. Jiang Xiao laughed coldly and walked forward as if he was very confident. Bai Qianqian, on the other hand, was a little worried. She retracted her gaze and walked towards the banquet. Chapter 641. Many geniuses of the Celestial Martial Arts Academy had gathered at this banquet. Of course, there were also several beautiful geniuses, such as Lu Li and Bai Qianqian. Jiang Luoxia had done the same in the past. He sat with geniuses like Hua Luiying and talked about life, showing off his personality. He also boasted that he was stronger than those outside, so he set up a group. Bai Qianqian naturally wouldn't invite Jiang Xiao in for a drink or anything. Even if she was willing, the others present definitely wouldn't think that Jiang Xiao had the qualifications. She looked for Jiang Xiao just to say hello and wanted a Jiang Xiao to change her request at that time. Qianqian is here. Lu Li looked over and saw that the annoying guy wasn't behind Bai Qianqian. While she was relieved, she also felt a little sad. Her mind was filled with the 100% winning method that Jiang Xiao said. Lu Li. Many young geniuses surrounded her. Whether it was Lu Li or Bai Qianqian, they were both top 10 beauties. Many young geniuses wanted to be their escorts. That was too rude of me. Please don't mind. Lu Li smiled faintly. Why would I take the offense of an insignificant person to heart? Which reckless person dares to offend our princess Hidden Fragrance? Yes, tell us. We'll teach him a lesson. The group of geniuses clamored, wanting to show off in front of the beauties. A handsome man approached Lu Li and said softly, What's the matter with Lu Li? Were you offended? But his eyes were a little pensive, as if he had something on his mind. Lu Li said, Don't worry. Let's start the banquet. Bai Qianqian was worried about whether Lu Li would go look for Jiang Xiao tonight. She wanted to find a chance to ask Lu Li and give herself some reassurance. Are you going to look for him tonight? Lu Li muttered to herself. I've thought about it. It's impossible. At the same level, Sword Dao and physique are restrained. How can he win 100%? Even if he wants to increase his chances of winning, my master can't think of a good way. Bai Qianqian was delighted. Then you don't plan to go? Of course. That's great. Bai Qianqian whispered to herself. If she won this round, then as long as Su Ying was that guy's servant girl, She could humiliate them to her heart's content. As night fell, Luli lit up the lamp and started reading a book. Under the flickering light, her face was a little red. Although her eyes were fixed on the book, her mind had flown somewhere else. Jiangzhang's Luli's words were like a curse. 100% winning? This duel was the biggest challenge she had faced so far, and it happened on the Azure Spirit roll. She had to win no matter what. It's fine even if I go. She turned and turned she. She was she was she. She was she. At this moment, Jiang Xiu was sitting cross-legged in his room as usual. He was slowly absorbing the essence blood to strengthen his divine body. Suddenly, his lips curled up into a smile. It was very Li's. It was. Knock. Knock. There was a knock on the door. Jiang Xiu deliberately lay down, pretending he didn't hear it. It was Luli. She looked around guiltily. It wasn't good for an unmarried woman to be seen going in and out of a strange man's room in the middle of the night. As a result, her cheeks were burning, and her knocking was a little hurried. Knock. But Jiang Xiu still didn't respond. Is he not here? Logically, Jiang Xiu should be here. Since he had an appointment, he shouldn't go out. Moreover, it was so late. He should be sleeping in his room. However, no one answered when she knocked on the door, so Liu Li could only leave. However, she had already come all the way here. Yet she had yet to meet him. She was really unwilling to give up. She was angry and frustrated. She even suspected that Jiang Xiu was deliberately playing with her. Halfway there, she did not give up and went back to knock on the door again. She had really lost all her princess-like airs. Knock. 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 Jiang Xiu's eyes were cold. Who is it? He asked. It's me. I'm here to ask for your method. Jiang Xiu got up from the bed and opened the door. Of course, it was Luli who was standing at the door. She had a cold face and was a little anxious. However, she still maintained her poise. Luli is here as promised. Please tell me the method to defeat the disciples of the Gold Sun sect. Come in and talk. Princess Luli hesitated for a moment, but still walked in. There was only a long table and a futon in the room. Jiang Xiu sat down casually, but let this distinguished guest stand. Luli bowed deeply to Jiang Xiu. Please tell me. Jiang Xiu said indifferently. The method is very simple. Luli should have cultivated the cloud-cutting sword technique. It's a very early introductory sword technique of your sect. Luli said. Of course I have. I have 3 sure-kill sword techniques here. If you integrate them, you will definitely be able to win. Jiang Xiu took away the book on the table and handed over the sword techniques he had drawn. Luli was skeptical. Because the disciples of the Gold Sun sect had cultivated an indestructible body, the power of sword techniques of the same level couldn't hurt them at all. After she saw the so-called 3 great sword techniques, she was greatly disappointed. Immortal weeping mountains and rivers, cloud moving 9 heavens, heavenly wind filling the sun. She shook her head. Forgive me for being blunt, but if these 3 sword techniques are combined with the cloud-cutting sword technique, the power will increase by a lot. It can also make the opponent panic, but it's not enough to win. Jiang Xiu said. I haven't finished speaking. Finally, and most importantly, here, all the preparations are for the final attack. After these 3 sword techniques are used, his back will be facing you. This is the place you need to attack. The hidden fire spirit. Your attack will be enough to make him reveal himself. This is the weak point of the Gold Sun indestructible god. Luli's eyes suddenly lit up. You're serious? All the external techniques of the sects had a weak point, but no one knew where the weak point of the Gold Sun sect's Gold Sun indestructible body was. It turned out that it made use of the hidden fire spirit. If Luli wins tomorrow, I won't let you down. Jiang Xiu smiled faintly. Luli even called him Mr. Li. Go ahead. Luli was overjoyed. She thanked him and left. Jiang Xiu's eyes gradually turned cold. Hua Luiying, everything you did to me, I'll return it all to you. I'll also let you have a taste of being betrayed. Looking at Luli, who walked out of the courtyard and floated away like a fairy chasing after the moon, he said, What a silly girl. The Gold Sun indestructible body can run rampant in the immortal martial arts world. The fundamental reason is that it has no weak point. You actually believed this. The next day, the battle between the Gold Sun sect and Luli was about to take place. It attracted countless people to watch. However, the location of the battle was a little high class. Not everyone could enter. Of course, it wasn't difficult for the disciples of the Tianqing school to enter. The location was definitely a palace. Everyone from the Tianqing school planned to go. Jiang Xiu was naturally no exception. He followed the crowd and headed to the destination in a grandiose manner. I heard that there are people betting outside for this battle. Boring. Senior Qin, do you think it's just gambling? Of course not. There are elixirs, spirit stones, and even artifacts. Hearing this, Qin couldn't help but be stunned. They're betting so much? The hands of the top 10 beauties. How influential is this? Many small sects want to make a small fortune from this. The surrounding passers-by were all talking about this battle. Winning and losing was one thing. On the other hand, they also wanted to see the Gold Sun indestructible body and Princess Luli's peerless elegance. Within the palace, there were even quite a number of elder-level figures present. Look, it's Jin Yangxiao. Everyone looked over when they heard the sound and saw a tall man. From afar, he looked like gold emitting golden light. The surface of his skin was sparkling and translucent. His whole person gave people a feeling that he was indestructible. What a powerful physical body. No wonder even sword techniques can't cut it open. Qin said, I heard that the Gold Sun indestructible body can't be broken by those in the same realm. If you want to win against him, you have to use a powerful spell to trap him. However, that's all you can do. You can't kill him at all. Only those who are one realm higher than him can possibly kill him. At this moment, countless people began to scream. Princess Luli. Princess Hidden Fragrance. In the sky, a fairy in white flew towards the roof and landed on it. The woman was peerless and beautiful. Who else could it be but Luli? At this moment, she stood high on the roof, and her aura was very fierce. Her eyes were full of confidence. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.